Relation, present.
Aaron Robertson, here. Tom Brondolo,
Here.
Tom Cash,
I'm here.
Palmer, here. Christine. Is she on Zoom, right?
Yes, she is.
Phil Hackney. Jessica Lovelace. Sarah Boyer. We had a vote.
Okay, so, quorum is 4, we have 5 members present, so we have a quorum, we can proceed. This is the first meeting of the year, so it's an organizational meeting. Anybody wants my job, raise their hand. Please.
How about we?
We can use.
To remain. I second.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, we had 2 vice chairs last year, which seemed to work out fine, so I'm okay with that. Is, that's okay with the board?
Would prefer not. How about, Tom, would you be willing to be the sole vice chair?
We don't want to join me. Sure.
Thank you. I nominate Tom Brondolo as the vice chair. A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so we have a new vice chair, solo Tom Brandolo. Thank you. Okay, correspondence. We received a letter. We had asked for verification of the septic system. We just received that letter, so I guess just going in the file. Nothing for us to do about it. It was a 1-bedroom cottage, auxiliary apartment, that accessory dwelling unit, so that's just for the file, okay. Conflict check, anybody?
This means solo.
Solar, okay. Noted, okay. New business, it's. Yeah, I'm gonna leave the minutes to the end. I don't know if everybody got a chance to read them because there was a little confusion on how they were. So we'll do the minutes at the end. Thank you for reminding me. Okay. New business, we have a request for a waiver. And there was a letter, and the best that I can tell, it's basically logging. Is there anybody here? Thought it might be you.
Yeah.
Can you please come up and explain what we're trying to accomplish here?
Sure. Basically, I'm Rob Struppel from STS Contracting. We do forestry and invasive vegetation management. And at Ms. Snyder's property, she has a part of her property that touches the Ridgeline Act, I believe it's called. And from the past couple of years, sure you've all seen it, the moss, the spongy moss took out a lot of the white oaks, the chestnuts, some of the maples, a lot of red oaks over like 100 years old. So we're looking to take down all of the dead trees on our property. Primarily, it's the chestnut oak and the white oaks. And it's only a little bit is in that ridge line, and the rest is just kind of on the cap of the of our property. And we're just looking to get rid of it, to get rid of the dead trees up there, get rid of the infected wood, and then forestry mulch all the invasives underneath, and then spread out native grass, start rebuilding the forest because it got destroyed.
This isn't a clear cut, is it?
No. It's
So that's
it's only dead trees.
How
left there.
many trees? Like approximately.
I would estimate like 150 to 200, something like that, but over 60 acres, it's not that much.
So you're gonna leave the brush, but take the wood.
Yeah, we're gonna remove the wood off, we're gonna leave the tops, we're gonna pull the tops off to the side, we're gonna forestry mulch all the invasives, which is barberries, bittersweet, you got Russian olive, autumn olive, all that. They have a lot of underlying birch, they have a lot of ironwood growing up there as well. We're gonna forestry mulch all that down to the ground and leave all that mulching on the ground, and then apply seed after that. And then you bring the tops back in, and as your seed starts to grow, the new vegetation for the new forest, the tops help the browsing of the animals to stop, so you can build the next.
Are the dead trees affected by the bat prohibition timeframe?
I don't believe so, because they're dead with no.
No, but they could have cavities that they're nesting in.
I guess they could, yeah, they could, yeah, and that's in April, I believe.
April 1st or
April 1st.
March 31st, I think. is the
Yeah,
last
yeah, I
day.
believe, yeah, we're looking if we can do this to literally, I have a machine sitting there, ready to roll.
So this is a logging operation.
No, it's just for the dead trees that are a hazard. That's it, she wants to be able to use her property and start to cut back on that invasive underbrush. And.
So you've had success with that, this method of
Yes.
putting the tops back and then you can't mow it anymore.
Well-
Invasives don't come back.
Well, the invasives, some will come back, but after you put a good application of a native seed, which is like switchblade grass, I have a whole list of the blend that we're gonna do. Once for the tops back, that in theory and in reality helps suppress the invasives, and then they can root and those will eventually take over the invasives. That is the whole theory of it. It's worked over in Spencertown, we've done it, we've done it in Steventown, I've done it over here in Taconic, we just did another parcel over Taconic, so we'll see in 4 or 5 years, but that's a common practice with logging anyways, that's why you leave the tops to help with the browsing. It's kind of like us, we like to eat sprouts on our salads. But once things get woody, we don't want to eat it, you know, same thing with the deer and the rabbits and everything. So if you make it harder for them to browse on it, you get better germination rate of what you want. You know, and then if it does fail, then you have to go back through and mulch it again, you know. But it's better than what the Land and Water Conservation does, and they go and they spot treat with chemicals. I mean, but then you spot treat 60 acres. I mean, how many gallons are you gonna use? What kind of spot treatment is that? You know, so we turned down a lot of jobs from them. Dylan Spowski calls me quite a bit, and I don't want to do it because I'm dependent.
Well, do you have a map of where this property is or? and where?
I didn't bring a map, I just assumed with the tax map and whatnot, but I do know it's right on your all solar map.
Oh,
We don't want to go there yet.
Yeah, not yet, please.
It is on there?
Sorry,
You said it is on there?
it's the back side of the other side, it's just like the corner of the
Down the
picture
road.
of it. Yeah, she's down the
Like-
road from that, on the back side of that.
I don't remember what I'm trying to do.
so and all those
Find a
other
map.
trees, are they on the ridge line?
No, there's only, I'd say 25 of them in that ridgeline area. Approximately, and those ones are like toast. I know Ed's got tons of pictures of it as well.
Significant habitat map on the wall, I don't know if we can bring that in and be able to look at that. I don't know if anybody wants to look at.
Yeah, I looked at some of the pictures. It just looks like bare trees.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when I was explaining, you can, and if you look at the pictures, you can tell which ones are dead, and then you can identify which one the chestnut oaks are, because anything live has wispy ends that can be able to foliage, and anything dead is all limbs that are like the size of my wrist, and it just stops. You know, they're nubs because they died. What, the spongy moss went away a year and a half ago approximately, and it was like 3 years before that, but. It just said we've done a lot of properties this way, and unfortunately for the clients, the value of the timber that's still salvageable. Because I mean, what's the point of just letting it go to carting? You can salvage just the butt logs, you know, the rest of it's all Josh should say, you know, but the rest of it is primarily junk, firewood, or whatever you want, making it the mulch, another renewable product. But the butt log usually gets some money out of, but now it's, you know, a year and a half after. The sap ring around the trees starting to really decay, and the value of the timber starting to go down. So there's no real drive for logging it anymore. It's safety. People can't walk around their woods because you have 600-pound limbs just dropping left and right.
But you're taking all that stuff.
It's not.
Can,
No, not the brush.
So
Yeah.
this is. They need
Can-
to. So
And-
somewhere over. So it is.
Joe,
Let's see if
Yeah.
that's ours.
Christine got a question.
Christine, go ahead.
Well,
Yeah,
She's,
let her in. Oh, there she is. We can't hear her.
yeah,
we have this is gonna, where are we? I don't know where.
can you guys hear me now?
Now we can.
yes. There you go.
Okay, sorry. I'm familiar with this land. I drive past it frequently, and it looks like there's already been a significant amount of activity. Like you can see a big area that's already pretty clear cut. I'd love to see like a map of all the proposed, not just on the ridgeline, but all the proposed or whatever's on the ridgeline. Because I don't have a sense still of exactly how much of the 60 acres we're talking about with this proposal.
I'm trying to think of a way to kind of like visualize it, like her property's pretty similar with the density of trees. So like, let's say per acre, you have like 600 trees. So we're planning on taking 200 of them. So whatever 60 times 200, I mean, it's a,
Sounds tremendous.
what, 200 of 12,000 trees?
You're
200
not
trees
talking.
So I don't-
200
total?
right?
But, I'm sorry,
You're talking 200 trees total?
total, yeah, total
Okay.
out of the
That's
60
not-
acres, yeah, that's what I'm saying, there's
That's
600
not-
trees per
yeah.
acre. And
The
I'm
way you
taking
said it
200
sounded like you were doing 200
No,
times
I'm back to
60.
like 200 trees that are in the main, her main roadways, her main tractorways, her main hiking paths.
There are
It's,
numbers here.
it's just the cleanup and to
Yeah.
make it safer for her.
So on that ridge line where it's protected,
She's down.
do you,
She's
do you
down.
know
Well, thank you,
approximately
yeah.
how many up there are gonna be
So
affected?
I think I
We
know.
were thinking about like probably like 25 somewhere. Yeah, it's the ridge line where it's red is a very small
Okay.
section of her property. It's mainly the property to the northeast of the direction that the ridge line, that red blob goes.
I think everybody's concerned that you're gonna take down whole like area
Yeah.
of trees that are gonna make
Yeah,
it look.
I can say,
you know,
but no, it's really heavily wooded with eastern white pines and a lot of the there's a lot of beech in there as well, which is really taking over. And that's a lot of the underbrush as well that needs to go out, because if not, that just takes over like crazy.
So to haul all these trees out, you have to have some kind of a road, a skidder road, you use a
Uh,
skidder, like the same kind of stuff for logging.
Yes, yeah, and
But this
there's,
is not logging.
well, it's a TSI, timber stand improvement, which isn't logging. And there's already actually established logging roads there, because this property was logged
Okay.
10 or 12 years ago, so we're not making any new roads, nothing. I mean, it's already very open as far as the larger timber. It's a lot of the invasive brush that's there now, that's just thick and doesn't let anything native grow.
Did
That-
did you
because
mark
it's
the
large.
trees already?
No,
You didn't mark? them?
no, I didn't mark anything, no.
Um,
I mean, and it's very obvious which ones are. dead
does
and
Ed
growing.
have a good idea of what's going on up there?
Yeah, Ed has a very, very good idea, yeah.
Ed was ready to just give him the permit until he realized that a portion of the parcel is in the ridge line and steep slope overlay.
So what is the permit for?
It
I
is,
thought you only need a permit to commercially log.
I think
Correct.
that's what it's
I
considered
think it's akin to logging.
So this is,
Yeah, it's like
on
a,
our definition, by our definition in our
so
zone,
it is commercial log.
is what we would classify it as in terms of what he would need a permit.
So
That's my
there's
understanding.
a whole lot of other stuff that you need to give to Ed to get a permit. Like a forestry plan, you need some more information.
oh,
get
yeah,
that
yeah, I'm
permit.
fully aware of a logging permit, that's what we do, one of our business
Okay.
strategies, but,
So
It's-
you should,
We should do that
well,
first.
yeah,
Ed just said to come and check with you guys, because he felt as if it didn't need the logging permit, because it wasn't logging,
oh,
and so.
I guess.
So
we're
what are we
confused too.
waiving then?
Yeah,
Waving for us to cut trees in that one, like,
For the
acre and a
ridge
half.
line, right?
Yeah, just where that acre and a half is, but I mean, if you want me just to stay out of that acre and a half of the 60 acres, I could do that too. I mean,
well,
it's.
Then you don't
I
have to
was
be here.
confused.
I'm sorry?
Then you don't have to be here.
Yeah, I mean, if that's okay, then I'll just do that. I just won't touch that acre and a half that's in the ridge line,
That would be ideal.
you know?
Yeah, I mean-
Even dead trees for no good for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally like 20 of them, and
It's
it's.
not a practical
It-
solution.
You will not be able to see from any view any of these trees. They're dead. They're all the live trees are towering over them. It's.
The ridgeline law is trying to protect seeing opening in that tree line at the
Yeah.
ridge.
Yeah.
That's what it's trying to
Yeah.
protect.
I totally respect that. I totally understand that. Like, I agree with that. I do. So that's why.
Maybe we can do the other cuttings and then mark the trees in that ridge line. And give the board a better idea of what.
And then
what's
take
getting
pictures
done.
or you guys want to.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
What do you think,
you know.
Christine?
So
That's what I do with that.
You'll get a
Side by
partial,
side.
you'll get You get a partial approval.
What,
So he doesn't need approval.
what
for
does
the other.
Christine think about that idea?
Christine,
Can she hear us?
She
You're
gets
on.
thumbs up.
Yeah, but then she's muted again?
She's, she can unmute herself.
you're
Oh.
muted,
Oh, you're
you
muted.
muted yourself.
Sorry, once I remute, I have to wait until I'm unmuted again. I think that's reasonable. It would be nice to understand exactly in the ridgeline in particular, like what the proposed scope is, because I'm still not completely sure what's being proposed. And again, there's a big section close to the road that's been cleared out completely already. Like I can see it from the road. So I would love to understand it better, especially when we're talking about getting up on the ridge line. But what you guys suggested makes sense.
Yep, what you see from the road is actually, that's forestry mulching, where we took all of the Russian olive and autumn olive and we mulched all that up. And the next step is any of the only trees that came down there were all the dead trees that got absolutely choked by the bittersweet vines. I mean, that place was just, you couldn't even walk a foot to that place. But you actually still see the border lines of how thick it was. We just mulched all that, and then any trees that we cut on any type of slope or anything, we do not pull the stumps, we only grind, and we'll do surface grinding. So then, once our native grass start to grow, you can have someone come in and mow it in a situation like that. That particular one, Miss Lori is planning on just mowing and keeping nice. And up at the top of the mountain, she wants to regrow the forest. So that's what we're doing, because that lower section that you see is clearing actually used to be a horse pen. There's an old fence that marks that out. Same thing with her lower neighbor, Ron Coletti, I believe his name is. He used to be an old horse paddock there too, so you can see, and then the neighbors too, you see where all the fields used to be. So that's what we did there, you know, we just did that. And then Mr. Ron took advantage of those 2 trees. We'll remove those for him.
Okay, what's the board's pleasure here? Him to come back with some sort of thumbnail sketch for
Or maybe
or mark the trees? What do you want him to do?
not much snow, we do walk up there.
Yeah,
It's-
well,
I
It ain't happening for a while.
I just did the whole solar field.
But I think if you mark the top ones, you know, where it affects the original one.
Yeah, that's
maybe
why you're here.
pictures and
Yeah.
then come back.
And that's
next
just
year, you know.
the red spot on the map, correct? That's all we're concerned about, is that red spot.
Yeah, it's, if you can determine where that is on
Yeah,
the
oh, yeah,
thing.
with GPS, totally, can, absolutely, yeah, we mark things out all the time, you can, there's all sorts of people trying to get us in trouble. all the
Okay,
time.
if you could take an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and indicate.
Yeah,
On
absolutely,
where that
absolutely, yeah, I'll even print out, you know, your map with the red on it.
Whatever
Yeah.
works for you.
Yeah.
That
Just
would be
gotta make
great.
sure you're not clearing the whole thing, you know?
Yeah, no, it's literally trees
Without-
every like 200, 300 feet. They already logged it 10 years ago, so they already went after the nice big fat chestnut oaks and white oaks, because those are the same grade. But I mean, don't be discouraged about the logging. I don't like using the word logging. It's timber harvesting. If you do it properly, you're really being a steward of the forest. You're not just going in there ripping, tearing, and destroying shit, you know, like. There's a reason why I do this, why I did a business on this, you know, we're not just clear cuts.
okay.
You know, and
So-
there's
so we
a
need
lot
to
of people
have-
buying these farms. And I have reclaimed so many farms in this area, all the brush lines pushing back, mulch
Yeah,
those.
that's,
You know, we have
Hedgerows.
vultures on excavators, on skid steers, grapple saws, reaching over things, grabbing trees, plucking them, you know, without hurting the root systems of the other trees, you know, it's an art, you know, but we charge for it, you know, you pay your money for us. Yeah, I agree.
I just want to understand that now. So right now, he would be okay to go ahead and do everything below the ridge
What's
line.
logging, he can do.
Right, and then in March, would he come back with the plan for the?
Right. He's gonna come back with
Okay.
something to show.
Is there
us.
anything else that we need him to come back with if you were talking about, if he is going to do that?
it's
ridge line?
between, it's Ed's determination, if he's considering this logging or not, and then what's required to get the permit with Ed.
Okay, alright, I'll see you, when was that, Tuesday again? Okay.
All right, and then, so I guess we just write a letter to Ed. Okay.
We'll Let Ed know.
Don't text him, he doesn't text.
Can I give you something?
Yeah.
This is,
Yeah.
it's Mark, you might find interest in reading that.
Cool, great, thank you. So we're all set?
Yeah?
Yes.
We're-
So
Till
I
next
can,
time.
I can harvest my dead trees, but I'll come back with a
Yes.
map. show exactly what you want, and if let's go for a field trip, we
Yeah.
can do it.
Yeah, see
Thank
Ed,
you.
okay. I am going to switch you. No.
Maybe the snow.
I'm sorry. I need Nan on the call and she's got a conflict and she gets on close to 8 o'clock, so I'm gonna go to solar. So, Ankrum PV LLC Solar, who's here to come on up and tell us what's going on.
Hello, my name is Sierra Hopkins. I'm a project manager for Rick Energy. We're the applicant for the Ingram Solar Project. I believe it's been a couple months since we last met, given the holidays, but at the last meeting, I think the board was just waiting on some comments from its own consultants. I think we're still waiting on landscape architect comments. So I haven't seen those. It sounds like maybe this month. We'll have them before the next March meeting, but we have not submitted anything else. We are just waiting on the board to be ready to make the next step, which would be closing the public hearing and making the secret determination.
There were substantial comments from our view shed consultant.
Right, we did not respond to those
Did not
formally.
respond.
No.
We're gonna expect you to respond to them,
Okay,
just so you understand.
so you would like a formal written response?
I think you gotta almost redo the report. The way
Well,
he made it sound, he's on, he could tell you himself.
Yeah,
James, are you?
we are kind of happy with the materials that we've submitted at this point, and we understand that there are new comments about the visual analysis, and we feel like we largely addressed a lot of those comments when responding to the visual analysis that the public had submitted. It was pretty similar, and so a lot of those I think have already been addressed. And so we would just request that the board make the seeker determination, and if it was a pause deck, then we can go into doing another VIA or something like that.
Is Mr. James on?
George James?
Yes.
Okay, what's that?
George, can you let him, George in,
Yeah.
please?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. What do you anticipate from your comments that you made on their submission?
So my comment is that I didn't think that the visual impact assessment that was produced was adequate. I thought it understated the visual impact of the project. I think, doing simulations with leaf-on conditions is just like a non-starter, especially since they said that they visited the site in March, but yet they used photographs with leaf on. There were a number of issues that I thought were problematic, and my recommendation to the board was that you shouldn't use the materials that were used for assessing the impacts on visual resources because they understated them. And so, yeah, my recommendation was that those materials needed to be redone, certainly with leaf-off condition photographs.
Yeah, so we did, at the board's request, submit leaf-off photo conditions. I think those were not shared with the consultant, so. We have
Okay.
submitted 3 different VIAs over the course of this entire process. After the original VIA that we submitted in November, I think of 2024, the board requested leaf-off photos. And so we had submitted another VIA that had 4 points on it, the same 4 as the original VIA that did have leaf-off conditions. And then after the planner came on months later, she recommended a GIS analysis, which we submitted with 14 additional points. Those were not leaf off because at the time that it was requested, the conditions were what the conditions were. And we took those photos at that time, but there were at least 4 leaf off photos submitted in a VIA that we had shared with the board. And I'm not sure that the consultant received those.
Mr. Attorney, can you jump in and maybe help clarify?
No, I don't know, I'm not sure what's being referred to.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you.
I mean, as far as my recollection, provided to Mr. James, everything that's been submitted by the applicant thus far, and so I don't know where the wires are.
I don't either.
Can they be resubmitted?
Well,
You
do we
would
have
like
them?
us to read?
I don't,
Do we have them in, we're looking at that,
Yeah, if I look through it and see it, fine.
that would be under.
I mean, there were all kinds of issues with the submission, starting with the camera lens, so
Right, we
what
had
what I
that.
suspect is the problem with the first photos, even if we find them.
So the
problem-
original VIA was taken on an iPhone, which is the standard that we've submitted VIAs for all across the state of New York for this type of project. It's been widely accepted. But after the first two VIAs that we submitted, the planner did request that the GIS analysis that we did, where we submitted 14 additional photos, that a digital camera be used. There were no further specifications about the type of camera. So we did get a digital camera and we did take those photos with that. And I think there was a comment from the Harkin analysis that was done by the Publix consultant, which we did formally respond to. And Wendell did write out, I'm not the expert here, but they did write out that it was a 35 millimeter equivalent lens. They did some kind of conversion or something. So I think that was addressed then.
George, can you hear me?
Barely, but yes.
Okay, John Lyons. Do you want to speak to, do you have anything to say about what was just said to the board? About the history on this, because I think that there were issues, having to do with the cameras that were used. In my experience, iPhone camera shots are not, in accordance with the industry standard. And then I believe that the subsequent photos that were taken on with a 35 millimeter lens, when a 50 millimeter lens should have been used. But you'll know, I think you know more about what is proper in this instance, but if you had some comments to make, now would be a good time.
There are
Well-
those with leaf off in the Dropbox, a few of them,
Yeah.
but apparently they're with a iPhone.
Okay, so all right. So what John is saying is correct, is that there's usually a standard that is done here. But the most important thing, though, is understanding what the 35 millimeter lens equivalent is. And there was nothing in the materials I reviewed. There was nothing in there. It was dated in September 2025. That was those were the materials that I reviewed. There was nothing in there that I reviewed that talked about technical specifications. They said that it was taken with a standard lens. And I submitted my comments late last year. And if there were additional materials, I know that John's associate said that they might be reaching out to me. No one ever reached out to me and said that I didn't have the entire picture. I would have gladly reviewed additional materials if I had been aware that there were other materials for me to review. But my point still stands, is that there's a lot of photographs that I reviewed that have leaf-on conditions, which do not show reasonable worst-case visibility, and that's an issue when you're making decisions regarding visibility and impacts on visual resources. You have to evaluate them in leaf-off conditions, because leaf-on essentially will not tell the same story. And I think that's for something like this, I think you're going to want to have leaf-off conditions when you're making your decisions.
Yeah, I think the confusion was that the early pictures, when we requested a new view shed, weren't attached, which would be a normal consensus, that you gave us a new view shed, so we submitted you the new view shed to review and not. Yeah. Yeah, so it's in the May submission, but
Share.
so
Yeah, the documents that I had provided to Mr. James were the ones that Appendix H and Appendix O from the September 2025 submission.
That's the most recent? That's the most recent, but there were several before that.
in a May submission.
This is the May submission with leaf off conditions.
I had assumed that if it was the latest, that it would have been incorporated all.
No, we only submitted the updated VIA with the new materials since you already had the previous materials, you don't have to use them. We only submitted the new submission based on Anne's comments and we did that to what she requested.
Okay. Well, I'll provide that to Mr. James. And we can see if he has any changes, but as I said, I provided the most recent one, so.
Yeah, I strongly suspect that if the second submission wasn't sufficient, the first submission isn't gonna be either, but we'll let Mr. James make that determination, so.
I will gladly review additional materials, and I apologize if I missed anything. The one thing
No,
I
it wasn't
will.
Sent to you, it was in the Dropbox, but you wouldn't have known that.
Okay. I mean, the one thing I will volunteer for the applicant is that, when you have a resource like this, meaning a visual impact assessment, you want to have all the materials at once so that people can look at it and assess the impacts from that submission. You don't want to have to look, I submitted those in May and you have this one other one in September in different documents. It just, you want to evaluate the whole thing at once. And that would be, that would just make it a lot easier.
If that's what would be easiest. We just generally how we've submitted every submission for this application beyond the BIA is that every time we submit something new, we only submit what the new materials are so that there is no confusion about what has been updated, what's new, what's old, what's already been reviewed. That's just how we've done the entire application. But if you'd like us to combine all of the VIAs that have been done, I can make a note of that and we can send something.
As long as the material is still current, I think it's easier for the public and the board to evaluate the impacts of the project when all those materials are together. So of course I will defer to the board.
We just sent them to you, you should get them. Mr. James,
I'm sorry?
just sent you the past photos.
Okay.
Well, if you could if you could look at them quickly and just give me.
But, we don't want to, if you need to review them, we'll review them.
There's not a lot of. I think there's only a handful.
Well, I'd like the board to consider taking up the applicant's offer to put the entire package together so that there's no question about what the applicant is representing with regard to the entirety of the package. Those can be put together, submitted to the board and submitted to Mr. James. He can take a look at that package, and then we're all working off of the same universe of materials, and he can let the board know in writing whether his review of that package changes anything about the opinion that he's offered thus far.
Okay, well, that's the way we'll handle it then. Anything from the board at this point?
Was there any other response from Central Hudson?
No, we don't have a response from Central Hudson directly. A broad statement that they had made, which I think we mentioned last time that the other utilities had also made, was that they've changed kind of a policy where if they are going to, if an applicant that already has an interconnection agreement is going to make a material change to the application, then they would pull us from the queue position and we would have to resubmit. So other utilities have indicated, like National Grid and NYSEG have indicated that changing from a pole equipment to pad mounted equipment would be a major modification. And so it would require an entirely new application and a new agreement.
So you're not moving forward with that?
I don't think at this time we could move forward with that because we already have the interconnection agreement in place with them, signed by them and signed by us. And if we were to pull that application, we would lose our spot in the queue position.
Yeah, but the key is you don't have an approval from us yet.
And from zoning law requires it to be underground.
The amount of wires that can be underground are underground on the
Except for these.
application.
Except,
Because they cannot be underground. They can only be on poles or on pads. They can't be fully underground.
transformer is a piece of equipment. A wire is something you could bury.
Right, but there's other equipment beyond just the wires that are required to go
We're
on
not
the
talking
poles
about
or
the
have to
equipment.
be
We're
on the
talking-
pads.
Talking about the poles and the wires. We understand the pads and the transformers will be there. They can be easily landscaped. Poles can't be landscaped.
We do have landscaping around the poles at the board's request at the moment.
There's no 40-foot landscaping around the poles. Come on, let's not be ridiculous here.
And you're just taking up more agricultural land and making it harder to farm that land with more. Putting a hedge of trees in the middle of the field there.
I mean, the area where the trees are around the poles is not that significant. It didn't increase our limits of disturbance at all on the project. And we put the trees there at the request of the board.
It's the visual impact of the 6 poles. That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I understand the visual impact of the poles. And I think the reason that we settled on putting the trees was that that would help to break up the view when driving down 82 from the one side.
My view is there when I'm driving. Poles are up there. So you're not hiding the poles with your landscape.
It's not completely hidden, no, but the trees do break up the view so that it's not as
That's
bold.
subjective. I don't think we're buying it, so. Anybody else have anything else?
That you already have an agreement, a preliminary agreement with Central Hudson on the interconnection pole. Did you, when you submitted the application to Central Hudson, did you just provide above ground poles? Or did you also provide underground poles? It just wasn't clear to us what had been submitted to Central Hudson and what they, the poles.
Yeah, so the lines from the array that follow the access road to the entrance are all underground, that's shown. And then they come up and there's the poles, that's the design that was approved by Central Hudson.
They never saw any underground poles or any underground wires that went through the.
No, that's, the only 2 options are the pole mounted equipment, as is the current design, or the pad mounted equipment, which we did submit a photo to the board of what the pad mounted equipment would look like. Those are the only 2 options. There's not something that can be completely underground because there is equipment required beyond just the utility lines, meters and things like that, that the utility requires. So those are the only 2 options.
We're taking
Can't
option
be
B.
completely
We're
underground.
taking option B. And we've been talking about this for a year, and we keep getting told for a year that the only solution was the 6 poles. Now it's changing that there is an option to do the pads, but now it's too late because you already have an agreement with Central
Right.
Hudson. Yeah.
Correct.
well,
That's the
guess
agreement
what?
we have, and that's the application that we've put forth to the board.
Good. We're not
Yeah.
buying it. You're not getting an approval with those poles.
Okay. The next step would be closing the public hearing and making the seeker determination. That comes before
Exactly. I'm
the
just fair
special use
warning you.
permit.
You don't want to change the application. Be fair. warned.
Okay. Understood.
Anybody else?
When looking at, the views from the other residences, especially the contiguous residences. The home that was on Route 82 was neglected. Also, there's another home, across the street that, I was up at the array and, the array location. And it's a very, very clear view of a house that's just across the street on towards the northwest. That was not taken into consideration for the views. Also, any of the other houses that would look across at the road and stuff like that. The new road that's coming up. So I don't think any of those houses on 82 were in the visual assessment.
No, we only did the visual assessment from publicly accessible areas.
Right, but it says that you have to screen it from contiguous parcels.
Correct. The code does require, and I forget the exact language, but it's, an attempt to screen as much as you can. And so we believe that we've done that, given, especially when looking from 82, the distance from the road to the array is quite far. And so that's something that you take into account, the distance and the topography when doing, when looking at what kind of visual mitigation would actually have an impact or have an effect. And so we determined that from the road, from 82, it's so far back that we didn't think that planting any additional trees anywhere on the parcel would be effective, particularly because in those fields closer to the road, we don't want to put trees there because the landowner wants to continue farming that. So we don't want to take up, space in those fields. But where the array is currently located, as you've seen, there's already, an existing border of trees around the entirety of the array. And so that was also a consideration.
I think that it has to be examined in more detail of if these homes have a view. Without any putting that in the visual assessment, how do we know that what's there is gonna screen it?
Sure. Well, I mean, we worked with, one of the contiguous parcels who did grant us access, but we only have access where it's granted. We can't just be entering private property to take photos for a VIA. So.
Stand on the property line. Or we can get permission. I mean, yeah, I think this is pretty important that these homes that are directly right in the area are not being properly screened, or are they? We don't know. Okay.
Anybody else on the board?
I have another question.
Okay.
There's a solar array being installed on Route 199 in Pine Plains right now. And what I realized is the whole lower field where they're bringing in equipment and storing it and vehicles and everything like that. It's a huge area that is like not the array. And so does the plans that you show for area disturbance include that construction setup? Bringing in materials, storing them, would that be near the road? Is that a big area? Is that going to be up in the area of disturbance?
Right. So the road will go in first, and then the array area, what needs to be done in terms of the ground will be done. And all of the construction vehicles and lay down area for equipment will be contained within the limits of disturbance that we've submitted on the plans.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm being told the public hearing, I need to open the public hearing to the public. I would like you to be very brief with your comments. If anything's already been said, it doesn't need to be repeated. And there wasn't a lot, excuse me.
Set a time. Set a time.
Yeah, no more than 3 minutes. If you have anything new to add, please. There was no new material. You heard what I have said, so if anybody would like to make a brief statement or comment, please step up, give your name.
Hi, Chair, thank you, and members of the board. My name is Rhea Mallet from McCarthy Finger, and as you know, I represent a number of residents in the community, and I'll be very brief. I know you have a lot of public hearing tonight. I just want to suggest another alternative. I don't think the next step is a SECRA. I think the next step is just rejecting the application because they haven't met the bare minimums of the code. It is not code compliant, as many of you have indicated. And part of the issue with this, which you have already touched upon with the utility poles, is that they didn't give the right information up front in their application. I will give you the exact language for the part about which the applicant representative didn't know right now about it's section M of the town solar law, G4 about contiguous properties, and you have to maximally screen within 5 years to avoid or minimize impact viewed from existing residential dwellings located on contiguous parcels. And the problem here, and one of the reasons why I want to stand up, is because if Mr. James is going to look at the original visual impact assessment, The two houses you just referenced are not on that assessment. And if you recall that 450 Woods Court, the Geschke residents, they sent you a very lighthearted Where's Waldo submission along the way. And what it showed was in that initial visual impact assessment, they not only didn't highlight their house, in one of the pictures, they put a text bubble over the house, which actually hid that house from your view and kind of kept this board in the dark as to what are the contiguous homes. And it highlighted a house that was farther away into the woods, to the right, if you look at that picture. But the 450 Woods Courthouse, which will be 800 feet away from the solar panels, was literally hidden in the documents they supplied it. So I just want to make sure that Mr. James knows that when he's looking at those original documents. But they also said so that was in their November application. And then it wasn't until May, 6 months after, Ms. Geschke came to these hearings many times and like begged you to pay attention to it. And you guys did, and we really appreciate that. But this is really a burden on my clients, on the residents who keep coming. It's costing them a lot of money to hire their own experts. As you know, we did do a visual impact analysis, and it's that analysis that helped get us to the point where we're at, but that was costly for my clients. And what is happening here is that the applicant keeps misrepresenting, and I just want to give you a couple more examples, and they're not code compliant from the beginning. So in their initial application in November 24, they said this project site is not visible from any public vantage point. So again, the visual impact analysis that they provided that Mr. James is now going to look at from November of 2024 doesn't have any public vantage points or any assessment because they said it's not visible. And then 3 months later in February of 2025, they then said in response to comments from your consultant, Ann Stolzenberg, quote, the only public road where the project could be potentially viewed was Route 82. So now 3 months later, they said, okay, maybe there's one road that's possible. But then in September of 2025, so that's 10 months after their initial application, but they said the project is not visible from public vantage points. And then in February, they said it was visible from possibly one. They then admit visual simulations show intermittent partial views from limited public vantage points during leaf walk conditions. And that is a visual simulation analysis that Mr. James did review, but they keep changing the goalposts from the beginning. And they didn't fill out the application according to code, even though in September, they said our application is totally code compliant. And then they also said in that document, well, you know, the neighbors do not have an inherent property right to their view shed. So they sort of like distracted the board with other law, but didn't focus on your zoning code that does require the maximum screening. So we just feel that this continued, you know, they have been up here many times that I've been here complaining that this is taking too long. I feel like they brought it upon themselves. They filled out a partial application. They didn't try in the barest sense of the word to comply with the code. Part of the requirement of the submission in the solar law is that there be an accurate photo simulation. I don't believe you even got that from them. And that's part of the application. That's part of what they should have done in the first place. So we are just asking, and I promise I will just wrap up. We are just asking that this doesn't even go to SECRA, that you reject it as an incomplete application. If they want to start over, they can start over. But it's very clear that it is not code compliant. I will leave it to your counsel to point it out to you. I would ask you to look again at our September 25th submission where we lay out the various sections of the code that they have not fulfilled. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. All right, we're going to adjourn this to the next meeting if information is submitted. Yeah, go ahead, come up.
Hi, Andrea Gashke, 450 Woods Court Road. So Mr. James has I think when we were last together in November, when I looked at the minutes of the meeting, just to refresh my memory, it looked like the board was waiting for the escrow account to be filled by Rick so they could commission Mr. James to do his study. That was the last time I think we were all together as a public group. So.
That's correct.
So Mr. James has now completed his assessment.
And the landscape. right?
No, we were waiting
For the landscape.
for the landscape architect.
I'm waiting for the landscape. So is that, when that assessment is completed, is that gonna be made publicly available and posted?
course.
On the Dropbox?
Everything is.
Okay,
They will present at the meeting.
at next,
The landscape
meeting?
architect, we hope it will be the March meeting.
at the market. All right. Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna adjourn this to the next meeting. Hopefully, we'll have some new information from the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question. Is George's report in the Dropbox? George James report?
Is it?
We'll read out it.
Well, it will be if it's not. Excuse me? End of December, I believe,
Beginning of January, the 31st January.
something like that. December 31st, yeah. Yeah, I don't know how it didn't get into the Dropbox, but it is now, almost. Sorry about that, but
Do we need a motion to continue the public hearing?
we need a motion to adjourn the public hearing to the next meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, thank you.
Is it-
March
Yes.
meeting. Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you. Is there a Nan Stolzenberg on?
No.
No Nan yet?
It's not 8 o'clock. Good 8 minutes.
Okay, well. We'll start.
Want to do the minute?
Okay. Why don't we jump to the minutes when we're waiting for Nan? Has everybody reviewed the minutes?
Yeah.
Or any comments, changes?
The only comment I have is on the discussion about the Boston Corners Hamlet. I thought we had a request to our cityscape consultant to look at Boston Corners Hamlet in terms of coverage. And I just feel like that should be mentioned in here because we didn't get a report from them, so I want to be clear that we did ask for something from them.
Have you read the cityscape?
I looked at it briefly. I
Okay,
did not
all right.
see anything in there, but
Okay.
I just felt.
He addresses his job pretty clearly in there. You may want to look at it at some point.
Okay.
What his responsibilities are.
Yeah.
I did.
I'm taking that off the plan.
That's
Oh, so we be prepared to discuss it tonight, but I'll leave it in
I'm sorry?
Well, is he on?
He discussed his duties in the memo.
Correct. The memo.
And that clarifies, he's not to design the project, he's to review the project.
Right.
I do believe he's aware of the question, though. I believe
Yeah.
he's prepared.
Okay, on the minutes, you want to add that? We can add that. Would you put that in there? Okay.
All right.
Any other changes? No, okay. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve the meeting from December 2025.
December 24th. 2025. Yeah, okay. Second, all in favor?
All right.
Aye, okay, minutes are approved, we're all up to date, so. Mr. Cell Tower.
Good name.
Yeah.
Good evening, record. My name is David Kenny, attorney with Snyder. Here tonight with me is regional manager of Homeland Towers, Mr. Xavier. This is again the application for the wireless telecommunications facility. Since our last meeting, we had some comments from Mr. James as well. Some of the comments required additional photos. We had photos from the Harlem Rail Trail that were only during the leap on conditions. We've since provided the leap off condition photos as well as some additional photos. We also provided, there were some technical comments regarding the photos that were provided. There was, as you remember, there was one view that was looking at from, and we have Matt Allen online if you can. He's our visual expert from Saratoga. You can bring him in. So we had one of, and I'll have him go through the responses in more detail, but just to briefly go over them. One of the photos had an issue where we colored the monopole brown, but in between two of the wires, it was left as a gray metal kind of color because it was just the way that they colored it, didn't pick it up. So that's been corrected. And then it was a confirmation regarding that the number of trees being removed was included in the Sims. There's only 7 trees being removed, so they're very small. It doesn't really pick up that well in the Sims, but they were included in individual simulations. We do again have our visual consultant, Matt Allen. I'm not sure if the board would want to hear from Mr. James first, or if you would want Mr. Allen to go through the responses.
James first.
Yeah.
Mr. James, you're up again. Let us know when you see your name.
Okay, I'm here. So yes, the applicant made a new submission. It addressed all of our comments. They did the new photographs, new simulations. They addressed the issues, the technical issues, all of the technical issues that we addressed. They also added simulations of a different tower design, which was a suggestion that was made. And so, you know, we felt that that they were responsive to all of our comments. And, you know, importantly, you know, I think that these simulations fairly and accurately disclose what the action is, what the visual impacts are from the viewpoints that are studied. And I think that the board and the public can rely upon them for assessing the visual impacts of the project.
Okay.
So as was discussed, one of the alternative designs proposed at the lattice tower, we do have photo simulations showing that alternative design from the viewpoints that we showed the monopole. If the board would like, we can go through those viewpoints to present to the board and to the public.
Yes,
lattice tower.
would you do that,
Sure.
please?
If we could bring in Matt Allen to the room and if we could make him a presenter so he could screen share.
I assume Cityscape is up. Could be one of a number of people. I never know who's gonna, there's a Ben Evans that signed this letter.
Make him a presenter.
It's is Elizabeth on? Could be one of, usually 3 people.
Elizabeth Smith is on, well.
Elizabeth Smith, okay, just want her to be aware that we're discussing her application.
Okay, there.
Okay. Hello.
Okay.
Did you want to try to get into half of the million? We're talking about the visual.
Yeah, yeah, go to the visual.
Has he been promoted to a screen sharing?
Yeah, I'm ready if you'd like me to screen share.
Yeah, go for it. Okay, Matt, if you could just, if you could briefly go over the visual report, but really focus more on the lattice tower alternative design in comparison to the monopole design.
Sure. What I have is some revised photo simulations that is new from the visual impact assessment that the board saw last year. So I can go through some of those simulations. I'm happy to show any or all of them, but I think the ones that are closest into the project are the ones that would describe the different alternatives. So that's where I'm going to start. And let me know. Okay, you can see the photograph.
Yeah.
Okay. So here we're looking at the existing condition photograph from White House Crossing at Route 22. So this is just approximately a half a mile north of the project site. You can see the existing silo on the site right here. Just moving into the photo simulations. This is the 100-foot tall monopole tower, painted brown with a single carrier on it. We were also asked to look at the same with additional carriers. So although not currently proposed, the tower certainly could accept up to 3 more carriers. So we simulated that also in the brown color. Moving on, we also looked at a lattice frame structure. And in this simulation, we're showing 1 carrier with a lattice frame structure also painted in a brown color. One thing I should note about the brown color is that works very well in this particular landscape, largely because from most angles, the tower is viewed against a background of hills. That's not always the case with telecom facilities. Quite often they're viewed against sky. So when they're viewed against a background of landscape, a darker color tends to work well because it blends with the background landscape. This view here, other than the one from Route 22 directly in front of the project site, I believe is the only one we simulated where the tower is at all visible above the background ridge. So you can see we're kind of looking at a worst case here where the antennas just peak above the ridge, but the bulk of the tower is viewed against the background landscape. So in this case, the brown color works well. And I'll just flip back. Then you can see the brown monopole and then the brown lattice frame tower. We also look at the lattice frame tower with up to 4 antennas on it. So you can see the bulk of the antennas begin to take up more of the view, beginning to offset any benefit that the lattice frame has, simply because of the mass of the antennas. But as I mentioned, the application itself right now before the board is for a single antenna. And moving up to Route 22, directly in front of the project site, I'll go through that same sequence. The 100-foot tall brown monopole tower with a single carrier, transitioning into up to 4 carriers. And then moving on to the lattice frame. And you can see a little bit more detail of the lattice frame here because we're closer to it. And up to 4 carriers on the lattice frame. And I'll show one from more of a distance. This is from the rail trail, approximately 1.25 miles to the north of the site. So at this location, the tower is very difficult to detect. You can see in the center of the photograph in this area, you can see the silo on the existing site. And then it's very difficult to detect here, but the brown monopole tower is here. The top of it extends to just about this location. And as I mentioned, the background hills form a nice backdrop, so you don't see any great contrast between the tower and the sky because obviously it does not rise above the background hills from this vantage point. And then moving on, 4 carriers. And the lattice frame with 1 carrier. And the lattice frame with 4 carriers. I don't know how this is transmitting to the room. I do encourage anybody who's interested to look at these images in their full resolution on your own computer screen. I believe they're available through the town's website. If not, I'm sure they can be made available. But looking at them either in paper form or I'm guessing through a screen share in the room tonight is not its highest resolution available. Highest resolution available would be the PDF that was provided to the board.
And with this, and Matt, I'm just speaking again. So with this particular submission, as Matt pointed out, we did have a really hard time with the photos locating where to like direct the viewer because Stealth Design works really well. So in the most recent submission for the newer photos, for the existing conditions, we showed a yellow outline of the tower on an existing condition photo. That's obviously not representative of what we're proposing, but it at least directs the viewer to where the tower would be in the views. So the most recent submission, we're acknowledging that it's very hard to review, especially from distance, the tower against the backdrop, which again, I would submit is a benefit of the design. But we did show a yellow outline of a tower in the photo logs to try to like help guide the viewer's eye.
You have to have a close-up of the lattice tower.
So the close-up we have is, I believe, the one that we have along Route 22.
You can't get any closer.
So again, the point of these are to be representative of what the viewer is looking. So if we did the plans and the lattice tower was chosen, we would do a full cross section so you could get the details on it. A close-up view would be on the property, and that's not representative of.
It's not about the photo. It's about seeing the design of the tower.
Absolutely. If this is something that seems to be what the board would prefer, we absolutely can have the plans updated to have a full design for the lattice. We would absolutely do that.
How big is the lattice tower at the base?
So I think that we'd have to run the structurals for that to determine exactly. But expectation
10 by 10, 8 by 8, 20 by 20.
Definitely 20 by 20. I don't want to throw any numbers out there.
But smaller than 20 by 20, and it's dependent on the factors of the grade of where we're going to put the foundation, all that. So we would have that mapped out, but it wouldn't increase the size of the significantly increase the size of the foundation because the tower would still go within the compound.
I could just ask Matt, could you go back to the monopole on the same viewpoint for me real quick? All right. So this is a monopole. Generally, the antenna array are no more than 10 to 12 feet in width. So if you can go back to the lattice tower. So that would mean that the lattice tower itself is going to be thinner than 10 feet, based on this.
Yeah, when you get to the top.
Well, these don't taper that much. It's a 100-foot tower as well. So I would expect this to be pretty representative. And like I said, if the antenna array at the top is 10 to 12 feet wide, it would be less than that. So, like I said, I don't know the exact number, but it's not 20 feet or anything.
So you haven't submitted a design for the lattice tower, so we know how big it is.
As far as the foundation, no, we have not. So we've submitted it as a visual alternative. If this is something that the board would like to see more information on, we can provide more.
There's a lot of debate on which tower is.
We understood it. So when we were looking at tower design, we did look at a few different factors. One is what does the town code suggest? So the town code is pretty clear. It says that the lattice tower is the preferred design. But then because we're in this
years ago,
that's the code. That's the code we're under. So the lattice tower is listed as the first preferred design, but because we're in the scenic corridor overlay zone, the second preferred design is a tower that's camouflaged to blend in with the surrounding natural environment. So we respectfully submit that the brown painted monopole does do that. It blends in. I think the lattice tower does that for most instances as well. But the lattice tower is named in the code as preferred design, and the monopole is one that's also achieves the concealment elements that the code asks for. The next two ones that we've discussed before, which was the flagless flagpole. There's technical reasons why we can't do that.
Can you go into that a little more for the general public?
Absolutely. So we submitted from our RF engineer a full report that went through why there are limitations for a flagless flagpole. First, it limits the number of antennas that you can put in there. the antenna center line was already been determined to be 95 feet. So in the first instance, if you're gonna have I think we have 9 antennas proposed. If you're gonna have 9 antennas and you can only put 2 at one rad center, you have to vertically stack them. So the tower gets taller as the first point. The second thing is down tilts. So when the antennas are inside of the flagless flagpole, that limits the ability to tilt them down to beam the signal directly into the areas that you want it. So directing the signal as far as down tilts, those are limited, as well as azimuth. So the directions from left to right where you can go, those are also restricted when you do that.
What's the diameter roughly of a flagpole?
It really depends on some of the stuff that's in there. We've seen them as big as 36 inches wide, so they look like smokestacks. And sometimes we've seen them as small as like 18 inches at the top.
They're not that big, we know that.
Yeah, but they're as far as a flagless flagpole, they're definitely not the same diameter as a flagpole. These are much larger, and sometimes they look more like smokestacks than they would actually look
Is
like.
the limitation of the antenna placement the material of the pole?
So
I would imagine the pole is some sort of metal, and I don't know what the antenna is.
So it's the antenna is metal and its circuits, there's a bunch of different things. It's more of the signal and the size limitation. So to conceal it within a structure, first off, it limits the types of antennas you can put in there. Not all of these sized antennas can be put in there. So you have to limit right there from certain types of antennas that can go into the structure. Second, remote radio units. One of the reasons why we were able to drop the tower height down to 100 feet, remember, was because there was a new radio unit that came out that allows to propagate the signal further. You can't put radios in the flagless flagpoles. So those have to be put at the ground and connected by a cable. That adds to latency, that adds to the degradation of service. And again, it's azimuth type of equipment, co-locators, all of these reasons make it a worse design from a technical standpoint. So not only would you have the issue of, if you build a tower now, it doesn't include all of the equipment that Verizon feels it needs to fill in the gap in service. It's also an issue that for future use of the facility. So we're building the facility now, but everybody knows that the facility will likely stay a long time and provide services for future generations of the technology. So if you limit the size and the ability to change out equipment, you're also limiting future modifications, which then makes it so that maybe another tower is needed in the area. Another carrier maybe has to come and build another tower because it wouldn't work with the flagless flagpole. Or even Verizon may have to come and significantly modify the existing facility because the new equipment it needs in the future wouldn't work in today's design. So, I mean, there's an abundance of reasons. We do have, as submitted into the record, a statement from Verizon's RF engineer that went through those reasons that I just paraphrased. And you do have your wireless consultant who can verify the statements that I made tonight.
Just trying to get a fuller.
No, I appreciate that. It's
what the problem is, because it's out there and it's most people's first choice because it's the cleanest looking.
Didn't we discuss at
structure.
one point that the flagpole would have to be significantly higher because of the equipment that was needed to put inside the flagpole?
That was what my first statement was that so the minimum center line height is 95. So then for that 2 antennas, I could probably fit in a flagless flagpole. So then if I need 9 antennas, each antenna above that 95 center line has to be vertically stacked. So yeah, the pole would get significantly taller to fit all of the antennas at a minimum 95-foot center line.
All of the antennas are you talking about?
Verizon's, all of Verizon's antennas. So the tower would have to get vertically stacked just for Verizon. What we would do for co-location space would be below Verizon, there would be space on the pole for a co-locator. However, that co-locator again has to vertically stack their antennas down. And you probably, with that sense, maybe you get 2 co-locators in one flagless flagpole. There's a third carrier that operates. So you have Dish, T-Mobile, and AT&T. You kind of are leaving open a door to have another pole in the area.
Well, the fact that Boston Corners isn't getting any service from this, I think there's probably
So Boston
another
Corners
tower in our future anyway, is there?
There may be, but Boston Corners is going to get some increased service from this.
So Boston Corners Hamlet, be careful.
Hamlet.
Okay, so let me clarify where in. So I reviewed the maps that were most previously provided and I kind of overlooked it on Google Earth. So there's a part of Boston Corners Road where it comes east and west and meets into, I believe, the Underhill, and then it comes back, the one that goes south will be Boston Corners again. So in that general area, there's an increase of mid-band coverage. So that's not the gap in coverage that this facility is trying to achieve or fill, but there will be an increase in coverage in the mid-band coverage in that area. And there are residences in that area, and that was labeled Boston.
And there's a hill and there's a valley. I make it simple like that. And on the hill, you can pick up a little bit of service from existing towers in Copic. In the valley, which is the hamlet, the part down below, and that's the part that the code refers to. And I think it refers to it for a reason, because it's a difficult area to get any type of service to, because it is a little bit lower down. One of my concerns, and I was going to bring it up with the consultant, maybe you can answer it, is that if you have two sets of weak signals, one coming from your tower, one coming from the Copic tower, is service going to get worse? Because these phones are going to be hunting back and forth between, what are weak signals.
No, so what will happen is one facility will become what they call like the dominant server. So essentially the one that has that stronger signal, that will be the one that the phone picks up more. So there are general overlaps of the signals in the facilities, and the one that's the dominant is the one that will pick it up. Beyond that explanation, I would ask that you ask your consultant, because you're getting into technical stuff.
That's what I'm looking
at. But we did submit in the most recent RF supplemental submission. There was discussing about the height of the facility. There was in there, we showed for the mid-band coverage, an area where there was no existing coverage in that area that I just discussed around Underhill and Boston Corners. Undermountain and Boston Corners, which will have increased coverage from this facility. There is showing that there is existing 700 low band coverage in that area. So that's not part of our coverage gap. That's not the goal of the facility, but the propagation of the signal will reach there at the 2100 megahertz band.
I understand what you're saying. We have in our code, a statement saying that cell towers, if they come in, should be directed towards certain areas, and one of them is Boston Corners Hamlet.
Correct.
So,
That's
it's one of my concerns is that if we don't get some better service out of this, how are we going to get it in the future? We're kind of between two cell areas, and that I feel like that Hamlet area is just going to be left without anything.
So there's a potential that wouldn't fill the large coverage gap here. There's a potential for maybe a DAS facility that could go into that area. I don't know the specifics of that area, but there are potential alternatives than another tower in that area, depending on where particularly if you have kind of weak coverage in that area from other things, and it's a capacity issue, or if it's a boosting of a signal strength. We're getting into stuff where I'm kind of speculating on stuff I don't have the information for, but I can state that section of the code, that the purpose and intent section, that's not actual, that is explaining why you have done the code, that explaining the purpose of the code, but it is an actual code requirement that it goes in those hamlet areas.
I know, but it is in there for a reason. And
well, I think that, as you stated, that's where the people live.
And this is our opportunity. You're coming in to put a tower, and we want to get coverage for the town of Ankrum, and the hamlet is the biggest settlement within your coverage area in the town of Ankrum. Most of your coverage is spilling out into Dutchess County.
Correct,
so I just, from my point of view, this is a local issue to Ankrum. So that's something that's important to us as planning board members.
I absolutely appreciate that. And I think the reason they put that in the code is because the hamlets are where the people are. Right? Right. So I think that was just an intention of like, if you're going to build service, we would want to make sure that, service was reaching those hamlets. However, you still have a major thoroughfare, Route 22, that runs through your town. And we are providing service to that portion of Route 22 that is in the town of Ankrum. And the gap of coverage that's along Route 22 is in the town of Ankrum. And as you stated earlier, I know that other communities may get service from this, but Ankrum's getting service from other communities from Copic. So the wireless services don't stop at the border. We have to kind of create this network.
No, I understand. This is our opportunity to ask for mitigations, whether it's
absolutely
changes in tower height, whether it's colors, or whether it's some form of trying to get service where we think we need it. So.
Just ask one thing too, I'm sorry. Is there a possibility of an extender, like we talked about on telephone poles, they have those small extenders to, maximize some other areas that hurricane coverage?
Yeah, small cells and things like that don't involve, these are called macro towers, are meant for those little areas where you can't get coverage into a certain area. They're only gonna cover 900 square feet, not square feet, well, I guess square feet. Well, no, 800 linear feet, squared. Yes, you would need a small cell type situation there. That's what's hard. The more farther north you get, it's harder for us as developers to get carrier interest, to spend the money to co-locate and develop these towers. That's why, even here at Town Hall, I don't have service here. You should have a tower here at Town Hall too. You are going to need more towers. And I know, for some people that's a concern, but in order to have proper coverage, one tower isn't going to be able to cover Boston Corners and Route 22. You're going to need other towers and other solutions like you were referring to, like a small cell solution to cover a valley in certain areas. I'm a developer. I don't work directly for Verizon. I'd love to meet with your, your town board and try to see if there's other town properties or rooftops in that hamlet that maybe the small cell from Verizon can use. That wouldn't involve me. I just build towers, but I could try to help facilitate that with you. And I would say if those are the concerns of your community, it does actually benefit you to complain to the carriers, because the way a carrier decides where they're going to allocate their funding, they don't have infinite funding. So every year they have a budget, they say where they're going to spend their money. And a lot of that is based on the complaints they get. So I would encourage you to reach out to the carriers to tell them that's where you want the service. But we can't expect every tower, this one's obviously covering a need. And we can't expect every tower to cover all of the needs in your community. You're going to need other types of facilities to cover those needs.
Yeah, but nobody wants to hear about another tower going up.
I know, but that's the only way you're going to have.
There might be other solutions to it, and
to cover a small area, yes, but to cover a large geographic area, no.
Well, it's only small areas that we're having a deficiency in, right?
Well, no, Route 22. This tower is covering a large.
No, I'm not saying this tower.
About this.
A mile or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's just covering like a mile or two on 20.
Isn't the radius,
A mile or two is actually a significant.
isn't the radius 2.5 miles for a cell tower?
It depends on topography in the area. So,
Roughly.
so for this.
It's overlapping circles, basically.
Correct. But for this particular one, we have the mountain to the west that we're using for blocking as the backdrop. The signal is not going over that mountain. So the signal here is really going north, south, and to the east. But yes, a 2 mile gap on Route 22, which is a major thoroughfare, and we included an average daily vehicle count. That is from an FCC standpoint, from a factual standpoint, that's considered a significant gap. Okay.
Yeah. Because I've been talking for a year. Yeah. This whole thing about the goal is Route 22. It's not our community. It's Route 22. And you've just said it 3 times. That's where the gap is. That's where this tower is being located for, and that's what you're providing, is to fill that gap. It's not because there's been complaints from the rail trail or people that living down in that valley. But give me a minute, please.
Sure, absolutely.
So I think I'm not happy with, I feel like you're blowing us off on the flagpole design. You're not showing us how it's going to be reduced coverage. You're not showing us the size of the tower that we can make a determination. I think you're required to show us this if we ask you that. And we have no idea. You've just been saying no at the last meeting and then at this meeting.
Respectfully, hold on one second. I have a written document.
But you haven't shown us anything. He's asking the size of what the pole would be.
Dan is in.
Dan is in? Okay.
So again,
Is Cityscape? Oh, yeah, Cityscape's on, okay.
we submitted a supplemental height justification for the facility. This was submitted when we reduced the facility height from 150 to 100 feet. In there was from Verizon's RF engineer, supplemental addressing of use of flagpole in place of traditional tower. He included from the Verizon's RF engineer the technical reasons why this wouldn't work. This was submitted to this board back, I believe, in October. So
But you just said tonight that it would reduce the coverage. You didn't say it wouldn't work at all. You said it would reduce coverage.
Hold on, I did not state that. What I
Yes, you
stated. What can I
You said it
finish?
would, well, can I finish? Like I said, we've been listening to you for a long time. And this community is really, really upset. There's a lot of people in this community that are upset. These are our neighbors. And the other thing I did not see in your visual assessment is anything taking along Route 22. That's a long stretch that if you're driving, that you're seeing this big brown tower against the blue sky. No pictures in that. You haven't shown us that.
The photo.
One.
There's also the first photo we showed from White Bike Crossing and Route 22 intersection.
Yeah, so two.
But, okay, again, this board was submitted a view shed map, photo locations. You've also hired a visual expert. We submitted all of this stuff. If you wanted additional viewpoint locations, we literally just went out and took other photos from the Harlem Rail Trail. You know, we have photos from along Route 22. And also, particularly if you look at the view shed maps, the reason why we didn't take so many is because the way Route 22 bends along the way and the intervening vegetation, there isn't substantive views along Route 22 for the whole section. There are points of it where you will see, and we have that in the view shed maps. Again, you know, we've taken photos from White Crossing where it intersects with 22, and we've taken photos from right in front of the tower. Again, additional viewpoints at this point in the game, we provided what we were asked to provide, and we submitted this, and we revised it, and we submitted more photo sims. So I understand the comment, but I mean, this timing of this comment is a little bit where we've already done that. I mean, we can try to take more photos, but I think at this point, we've already submitted an application that one
I was
shows.
hoping our visual assessment people might bring that up and discuss that. And so that's why this board's been waiting for gathering of information and to help us make these decisions. And
I do appreciate that, but if I could just speak back to the flagless flagpole design. So the reasons why we stated that were technical reasons for the use of the equipment, the down tilt, the optimized coverage. This is it can't support. So also can't support if there's a need for the fire department or emergency communication services to put an equipment on it, that flagless flagpole would not accommodate within flagless flagpole any of the emergency communications equipment. So we've provided numerous reasons for why that this isn't something that the applicant's proposing. Again, under the code, it isn't that the section of the code says that is whatever design that the board would like. It is a requirement that we provide either a lattice tower design or we provide camouflaging that blends in with the surrounding natural environment. We've showed photo simulations tonight that arguably people couldn't pick out the facility from most vantage points. So from an objective standpoint, we have submitted a facility that complies with the code's requirement of a stealth design that camouflages and blends in with the surrounding natural environment. The flagless flagpole, for technical reasons, we're not proposing it. We submitted that in prior submissions, and you have a wireless consultant who can review the reasons why we put forth, why we're not submitting it.
I wanted to, just for the board, knowledge, what the statement are, Mr. Kenny is correct that it does have a preferential treatment in the zoning law, and lattice is one of them. But ultimately, what the board should be looking at is what's going to be, this is section 6. If a new structure is required, its design must be the least visually obtrusive of all reasonable options. Now, Mr. Kenny has provided that the flagless flagpole and the silo, in his opinion, are not reasonable, but at the same time, the board did request to see simulations of that. They were not provided. An explanation was provided by Mr. Kenny and Verizon, but it's up for the board to see if that perhaps could be at least visually obtrusive. That's really what your key phrase is going to be looking into. It's just wanted to just say, and just to say, you know, the board does have the ability to ask for alternative color schemes and disguises for telecommunication. Again, your idea is to look at what's going to be least obtrusive with reasonable options as well. So just for the board's understanding and consideration. Yeah, person, please come.
I believe, right, the flagpole option was also gonna be so much higher that it needed a variance.
That is correct. We needed an additional variance and
So it just seemed like that was not really the greatest option at the time, and we discussed other.
Yeah, I got mixed feelings about whether a
aesthetic.
variance would be gotten or not gotten, or if we could even tell them to go get a variance, so. It's, we got a conundrum here, so we have to find a way to move forward, so.
The other question I'd like to talk about, which is around the road too, is,
How many miles can you see it? I think that was one of the questions that we asked at the last meeting was, how many miles on Route 22 can it be seen?
That right now is intended to show that.
Okay.
so it is just beyond, if you see the blue touches Route 22 before you get to that 1 mile marker. So the smaller interior circle is a 1 mile radius. And you see the blue is the areas where it's anticipated visibility. And again, when we say anticipated visibility, it could be the top like 2 inches of the tower. It's not distinguishing between the full view of the tower and the top view of the tower. So there might be intervening vegetation that screens the majority of the view, but you would potentially be able to see some part of the tower at wherever that is. So it is
A
again.
little over a mile.
What?
A little over a mile.
I would say within that it's less than a mile, but yeah. It's a 1 mile. Yeah, it's a 1 mile, 1 mile radius, but I think it ends on 22 on the orange, right where you get to like Whitehall Crossing. And if you go down, it's kind of seems to start getting off of the Route 22, right almost where that intersection is diagonally.
Have you
Please
seen,
Conipus, or
have you seen Cityscapes, Wes?
yes, I did review Cityscape's most recent report, was sent
Okay.
to us last evening.
There's 5 indications of what might have been proposed towers in the area. And 4 of them don't exist. I don't know what this is to explain. There is a tri-state public communications tower, which, I guess that's the one furthest south. Is that in Millerton? I don't know what these other 4 reference. I'm kind of.
that doesn't exist.
Sounds like they were proposals that never got built.
That's why I'm asking the question.
Mr. Chairman, I believe you have a representative of
Yeah.
Cityscape on the video, and you also
Yeah.
have Nan Stolzenberg. Both of those folks have been listening to the dialogue that's been taking place thus far. You may want to invite them to comment if they have any comment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, you like me to stay on for a bit longer?
yeah.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
I don't know if you were getting outside of the visual.
Well, it is about the visual stuff is my questions.
No, I mean, I just wanted to just know if we were going.
Yeah, I'll let them hang in there a little longer. I don't think we're gonna go too much.
You can just,
longer.
yeah, decide it.
Who's on from Cityscape? Sue?
If you folks don't mind, I will stop screen sharing, but I can bring this back anytime you ask.
Thanks, Matt.
So who are we looking for?
Elizabeth?
Did you have her?
Yeah.
Good evening. Also from Cityscape is Ben Evans, if you could invite him in, as well as Anthony Lepore. Both of them are here from Cityscape. And Ben did have a chance to review all of the new submission from Mr. Kenny, and so he can talk a little bit about some of the questions that you guys had.
Yeah, I was just, on page 2 of your, page two of your initial report, there's a little chart on the bottom that talks about other sites that don't exist. are these potential, or these proposed, or these?
So that, I think that was the point of that paragraph, is that one of the opponents of the project brought up antennasearch.com, which is a web utility. And so those were identified on there. And you'll see in the last column, Ben put that some of them were there, a lot of times they're not there. So you can see that. And Ben, if you wanted to talk more about that.
The towers marked ID 0, 1, 2, and 3, as near as I can tell, do not exist. Number 4, Tri-State Public Communications. That is an existing broadcast tower, an AM and FM tower, but it's 3 miles south of the center of, well, it's 3 miles south of the proposed site. And being 3 miles away, it will not sufficiently fill the coverage gap.
So that's the existing tower is out of the range. And these 4, we just don't, they're not proposed, they're not existing.
They may have been proposed at one time, but nothing apparently was built at any of them.
All right, so they're not coming down the road, as far as you know. Okay, that was one of my questions. Anybody else for Cityscape while they're on?
So we go back to the Boston Corners Hamlet. I'm sorry, yeah. Are you able to evaluate if this tower, if it goes up, will it improve service in a hamlet, have no effect on the hamlet, or possibly worsen service because of competing signals, which is what I mentioned earlier? Are you able to comment on that?
As far as Boston Corner, I can only go by what's
I'm trying to add one thing. We asked for some information on this in the last meeting, and I was kind of dismayed to not see any mention of it in the report. So if you need more time to go over and look at this issue, that's I understand that.
Well, I did look at it prior to the meeting, and I can tell you what I found. All I can do, I can only go by the new propagation maps, which were circulated around, I guess today. And these propagation maps are very useful, except that they're very lacking in detail as far as the side streets go, the local roads. You can see the highways, but you can't see the roads that go through populated areas. Now, what I did was I took this map for the mid-band and for the 700 megahertz band, and I tried to plot what I believe would be the center of the hamlet of Boston Corners. In doing that, and I hope I'm accurate in where I plotted it. And what I see looking at the maps with that dot representing the hamlet is on the mid-band. I don't see an improvement at that.
Can I ask one favor? I understand you're looking at this right now. I'd really like to get something in writing that we can look at, that we can add to add to this report that we have.
Yeah, you can have something in writing.
All right, I'd rather have that than have you flipping through stuff right here where I can't see or follow too much what you're doing. Okay?
Okay. Well, should I continue?
That's right.
I didn't mind if you would just finish his thought.
Yeah.
I can continue.
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Oh, okay. Like I said, on the mid-band coverage, I don't see, maybe I need to look at that, Google Earth image that David was referring to. But on this, but on this map, it just shows an ordinary map and not a Google map. I don't see improvement at Boston Corners on the mid-band. I do see some improvement on the low band, the 700 megahertz band. You would it would be upgraded somewhat from no signal to a good outdoor signal, and in some places signal good for in-vehicle coverage. But I don't see where there would be in-building coverage on 700 in the hamlet of Boston Corners. The other location that you were referring to was the what was that? Under Mountain. I looked at a point at the intersection of Under Mountain Road and Boston Corners Road. I did see some better improvement there, both bands.
Higher elevation area, though.
I'm sorry?
Oh, that's a slightly higher elevation area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As you go east, the area does improve. On the mid band, according to the map, the signal would be upgraded to good outdoor and good in-vehicle coverage. And on the 700 megahertz band, we have a substantial signal increase there. You would have very good coverage indoors. In-building coverage would be much improved.
When you put this together into something in writing, can you elaborate a little bit more when he's talking about the megahertz and bands? What is that actual impact in service to somebody? Does that show in
it does
does that improve the bandwidth of what they're getting? You put that in kind of practice.
Well, I can't see individual buildings or houses or even the side roads. So, if I had something from Verizon that I could project onto a Google map, I'd be able to tell you which buildings would get what kind of coverage and which roads would get.
Like a diagram or something showing colored areas of where the worst areas are, the best areas are, maybe means of improvement in those worst areas.
Yeah, in the report, I can show that, but I would like to. David referred to something he looked at on a Google map. I would like to see that in order to do my report.
The issue we have is that, while I understand the board's interest in this area, this is not the objective of the application. Mr. Evans, in your professional opinion, is there a significant gap in service along Route 22 today based on the information provided in the application?
There is.
Okay, so we have to fill in the significant gap in service. And so I understand maybe there may be more service needed in other parts of the town. And, you know, I'm sure for another application or for just in helping with the town, we may be able to work with the town in helping it as a good neighbor. But with this particular application, our coverage objective is to get on Route 22. And so we're filling in that in the surrounding areas. There's the farmlands and all that. And as you know, we had public comments making statements regarding people who were logging and working in the farms that didn't have the ability to make 911 phone calls in this area. So we are trying to fill in that need.
Look, I understand completely what you're saying, but I have a responsibility to go over and to my community's planning board to ask these questions. And this is our consultant. And one of my questions was, is this going to make service worse if we have two towers that are competing? And I ask you that question. We have to turn the same question to our consultant to get the same answer. And that's all I'm doing. I ask you the questions. And I'm just asking him the questions. I'm disappointed that they didn't provide more. I really prefer not to have an ad hoc opinion of what he's doing. I'd like to have something visually that I could read and look at. It may not make any you have your points and they're, valid points. But I think it's important for us to understand how far this reaches, where it doesn't reach, and what the impact of it is. It's the impact of the propagation map that I'm looking at on that community. And I think that's a completely valid question to ask about your tower.
I agree. Also, it's in the best interest of our residents who are going to tolerate seeing and dealing with the tower to have the most coverage and to understand the coverage that they're getting.
And you were talking about,
that's what you're asking for, is the possibility of showing what areas are lacking, what areas are better, and to get a little more detailed. I mean, yes, Route 22 is going to have service, but are the houses in that area, or the people who have to deal with it, going to have the proper cell tower, the cell service that, you're proposing? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, it seems like the only thing you would be asking for is a new map that just shows the underlying streets better. Even without that,
it's not a big deal.
It's not a big deal, but then it takes me time to get to you. Now we're out another 2 months. This has already taken over a year to get to this point. And the code doesn't require that any application that comes before you covers the area specifically that you want. And Mr. Evans did say in this, when the 3 locations he just went through, he did not say that it was going to be worse signal coverage. He said he can't see the exact street to know if house 4 or 6 is going to be covered, but he said it would be upgraded to on-street coverage and in vehicle. For each location, he said it would be upgraded. So if I spend another 2 months going back and forth with this to show you maps for underlying streets, his answer is not going to be any different.
Is it going to take you 2 months to figure out?
Well,
we're not looking for each house. Understand?
No,
we're not.
I'm going to show you the same
This
exact
guy's
map.
getting it. This guy's not getting it. This guy. We're just looking for. We got a hamlet of a certain amount of people that are going to be there. We just want to make sure that those people get the coverage that
Or if they're not getting coverage, honestly, that I can say that you're not getting coverage out of this. And I don't think it takes a lot to go over and answer these questions. I think they have all the information they need to answer. I would just like to get something in writing as part of the report. I think it's an important part of the report that they do.
So there's a couple of factors here. One is that, so there is a tree clearing restriction here. So if this application goes beyond an April 1st date, then there's almost like a 7-month delay before we can build. So there is a pressing need to make sure that we try to get some sort of decision regarding that at least allows us to remove the 7 trees that were being removed. So that's I'm just explaining part of the reason for the push here. The second thing is that the request of whether or not there would be worse coverage. This is the first time I've heard this tonight. The last request was, would this provide some coverage to the Boston Corners area? And I believe, although it wasn't included in his report, I believe he stated
that worst coverage was something that you answered already. I just talked about is a signal going to get stuck bouncing between 2 weak signals. And so, and you gave an answer to that, but this is our technical consultant. That's, just take the same question and turn it to them. That's all.
I have no issue.
And so, I mean, if it's the same answer, he's going to write the same sentence.
That's fine. I'm just trying to bring it back to the whole reason why we're a little bit about, we don't want to move forward with providing this information and going down a review on that part of it is because let's say the application doesn't provide any additional service to Boston Corners neighborhood, and we're still filling in the gap in service. That is allowed to be done. We're allowed to put forth an application to fill in the gap that we're seeking to fill. The issue again is that, you know, we're now looking at issues and in areas that isn't our coverage objective, isn't the reason why we're here, is not the significant gap in service. And the code doesn't require this language. I do understand the goal of having the fact finding, but this particular applicant has proposed a facility that is code compliant to fill a gap in service that your expert just stated is a significant gap in service along Route 22. If there's additional beneficial coverage, that's great. But again, this additional beneficial coverage that we're talking about is not the coverage objective. So whether we're providing it or not, that's not the contents of our application. It might be an important interest for this board, and we're happy to provide that information aside from the application. But for this particular application, we've made an argument that there's a significant gap in service along Route 22. Your expert has confirmed that significant gap in services exists. We actually reduced the height of the tower from 150 feet.
Let me back up 1 second, okay? I brought this information back up in December, okay? Nothing showed up in our applicant report. We were here. We would have been happy to have another meeting in January, but you guys weren't here. So when you talk about time going by.
January meeting was canceled on us. January meeting was canceled. That's not, we didn't show up to a meeting. The January meeting was canceled.
Well, my understanding was canceled because there were no new submissions or nothing else.
No, it was canceled because of, we actually had made a new submission. You're reviewing it now. Like, we had a canceled meeting because we were told that there wasn't a quorum.
Okay, my understanding is that there wasn't information to review at the time.
We did not have.
I'm just telling you my information. Anyway, I don't see why this is such a difficult thing to do and why it presents such a problem in terms of this whole process to go over and just, I mean, we have a technical consultant to go over and answer questions for us. The tower does extend in some way into that area. We're just trying to understand how far it extends and what it covers. And to me, that seems like a very reasonable question for looking at a tower.
I have no problem with Mr. Evans revising his report to answer your
That's
question.
all I'm asking for.
Well, you can demand that of him now, and that's fine. But the idea of me making another submission now to show you a little understreet, which he's able to figure out, there's an upside street to figure out.
Yeah.
And he just did, and he answered me verbally. Him making a submission to clarify his portion.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking for. I mean, he's not sure where the Boston Corners Hamlet is. I just wanted to.
If we have a full and complete application, we're torn because you wanted the tower shorter, which is going to create less coverage. At the same time, he wants to cover this area over here, but you want a shorter tower, and we're getting ping ponged around.
The height difference didn't make any difference in this area, apparently.
What's that?
The height difference didn't make any difference to this area, as far as I know.
The coverage objective, it didn't make.
It might not make any difference.
It made a difference, and it's even in Mr. Evans's report that the 145-foot center line covered better. What we showed was that the gap in coverage could still be filled with a 95 center line when we had the new RRHs. I do appreciate the comments point, but you have to understand, if this takes beyond that April 1st date, you've added an additional 7-8 months to construction of the facility, which we've had people comment and complain that they can't make 911 phone calls. There is a need to try to get this done as fast as possible so that we can get the service and fill that gap in service as fast as possible. We have extended the shot clocks. I am appreciative of the question that's being asked, and I almost wouldn't mind providing it if we could go ahead and review the application and have that question being answered as a good neighbor gesture that doesn't have to do with this particular application.
That's what I was just gonna ask. Is there a way we can both move forward with this and get everything we both want here?
That's what I would try to ask. If we could say that this particular information isn't germane to this particular application, but it is a reasonable question and we can provide that information as a good neighbor gesture. I'm happy to do that. I would like to move forward with this application for any potential that we could to have the ability to remove the 7 trees that we're trying to remove before the Indian and back clearing restriction goes.
Can't believe 7 trees is holding us up.
Yeah.
Andy Campanelli is on.
No, no.
Yeah,
When are we gonna go over Nan's?
I was just
report?
gonna invite her in to go over her report. Nan, are you in? Are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Hello, Nan. Good evening.
Hello.
Can you just go briefly over your report, bring everybody up to
Yeah, it's hold on, let me get back to my
who we
screen.
are and what you accomplished?
Yeah, so it was the memo is really to reflect movement and responses on the I think there were 13 items from my December memo, and I received information both from the applicant and from the planning board on items that have been taken care of already. And I think from again going back to some of the technical things in the December memo, they were a lot of them have been addressed. I did ask the applicant to prepare, I don't know if we have to prepare another map, but to ensure that clear limits of disturbances are shown on the maps. I feel that they're difficult to, because there's a lot of stuff going on the sheets with the topographic lines, and I wanted it to be very clear for everybody where the limits of disturbance were. So they agreed to make sure that that limit of disturbance was on each sheet and to clarify. I think they were going to make something that took the topo lines off so it was easier to see. We talked about the operation and maintenance plan, and my concern back from the December memo was that if they're going to use existing trees as screening, and that's showing on the site plan, then the operation and maintenance plan also needs to ensure that those trees are maintained. And so the memo talked about a two-way kind of thing, is that both the operations and maintenance plan needs to reflect that they will maintain those trees for permanent screening, and on the same time that the town needs to has as a condition of approval that they do that, so that there's that enforcement tie that the town can make. So I think there's some cleanup that still needs to be done on the operation and maintenance plan, as well as that I included that note number 2 on page 2 for you, just as a reminder that we need to include that in whatever decisions you move forward with it. I think that, I didn't have any other related to the December memo that I had. I didn't have any real other significant new comments to make. They've given answers and addressed all of the things that was mentioned in there, with the exception of this discussion on the visual impacts. And so that's been an open issue. And I guess I would just ask the board to kind of think about that, that when, we all recognize that the aesthetics of this is a significant issue, because of the location in the scenic overlay and the emphasis that the community has placed on the visual character of that area and the whole town. So when we look at visual impacts, I just jotted down a few questions that you need to really think about, whether you can answer them yet or not. Getting at the question, ultimately, are the visual impacts significant, which is really what seeker is asking us to do, we have to, what does that mean? Well, we have to look about things like what degree of change will there be? Do you have accurate information to make that decision? Have you considered all of the reasonable alternatives? Why was the selected option for the design, whether it's a lattice or a monopole or a flagpole, why was that chosen? Do you have rationale for choosing that one? And have the mitigation measures that have been offered meaningfully reduced the visual impacts? And then also to look at, does the public benefit for filling this gap outweigh a permanent visual change? Those are kind of the questions in seeker that we need to discuss, and the planning board needs to discuss to get at ultimately the bottom line. Is there a significant adverse impact? So, I can't answer that for you. You have to answer that obviously for yourself. It seems that you don't have all of those answers to be able to answer those questions yet. So I think you have to start by, in order to move on, you have to kind of set in motion whether you can answer some of those questions so that you can reasonably do the question about, are the visual impacts significant or not? So we recognize that you've already recognized that there are visual impacts. So the job is, are they significant? And that gets us kind of into the part 3. That's what the part 3 analysis and seeker does. So I guess I would ask you to, think about whether you have the information you need to answer all those questions. So I didn't have that last part in my memo, but as I was listening to you, those are some of the things that came to mind. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
If I could ask one question. How do you make that determination on the design of these towers to aesthetically approve something that everybody's got to look at this point?
Aesthetics are in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
And it's
I know.
a personal opinion, what you like.
I know,
That's
but
what I do for a
whose
living.
personal opinion? Is it our
Is it-
personal opinion?
Yes.
Is it the community's personal opinion? Is it what works better for the community?
I think the
You know.
first question that you have to consider is that we have the brown monopole that has been submitted, and we have the lattice design. The lattice design that has been submitted. There's been discussion extensively tonight and at the last meeting about the flagless flagpole and the silo. I guess one of the first questions that the board should be asking is, are you satisfied with the monopole versus lattice, or are you still wanting information about the silo or the flagless flagpole?
I don't think those work. I don't think those even fit in the equation,
Okay.
because that's gonna involve a lot more figuring out. They're already saying that the flagpole's not gonna work for their application. Both of them, the silo or the flagpole. There's a lot of variances and variables to make that work. That'll push this out, a long time. So I think that's my personal opinion is we have to make a decision on the
Monopole or the lattice.
monopole or the lattice. And that's what we're being presented here.
Yeah.
And then how do we decide on those two items? We could have a different opinion. We were just talking about looking at pictures. In some pictures, I thought the lattice looked pretty good, and in other pictures, the brown monopole was disappeared into the mountain. So who makes that decision, that's,
But the thing that you should be looking at, so I don't know how the rest, thank you, that I know that's, I don't know if anybody else has an opinion on that, but I guess if we're between perhaps the monopole and the lattice, this might be a good discussion with the board to decide which one, there's going to be pros and cons to both. I think it's been clear that that's going to be the case, but perhaps we can have a discussion now as to which one if you're ready to discuss it, which one you would like to go forward with. And I think once we choose that tower, we can continue on with the review through the visual assessment that Nan can help us with through seeker and just the rest of the application.
Can we make a decision with us deciding whether the flagpole and the silo is completely out? I mean, I think that's our first decision.
That I would say that would be your first.
Yes.
decision,
And then
because I
after
think if
we
you-
decide that, then we could decide which
Lattice versus mono.
lattice, monopole. What do you think, guys?
I know what my feelings are. I don't think physically the silo works because of the proportions and the height. It's just gonna look like a monstrosity.
The flagpole has a lot of.
The flagpole has a lot of negatives.
Disadvantages for them.
Not for everybody, because you're not gonna have.
We don't know that. They haven't shown us.
Just explain to us.
He hasn't shown us a plan of the coverage on Route 22. With that, he's just saying, no, it can't be done.
But even,
Like I said,
but
coverage,
even the
like
fact
visual
that
coverage.
the height is gonna be extended past the point of a variant, we need a variance of it. And it's gonna get
I don't know
less,
that you got
less,
that information. He's just saying that we haven't, our consultant did, can you give us a minute?
Absolutely, but I have to correct the record when you make.
All right, well, you know what? We're having a conversation. We're,
I have to.
all right, all right. I'm just saying, I just concerned that we might not have, or I'm feeling like, you know, Cityscape weighed in on this. It also agreed that it can't be done at all, that there is absolutely no service on 22 with that.
can we ask them your concerns now to make
Yeah.
that decision?
I don't know if they,
Is that possible, Jill? Can we get them to Cityscape? to
did they
at least answer-
respond? They did,
At
I
least
did not
answer
see,
that question about the flagpole and the silo?
I
If
did
it's
not
going-
see in their last response that they replied to that.
You want it in writing, that's a different story. They can't do it at the moment. Right.
Right, because the last meeting, there was no decision on that, or. Yeah. Right. Okay. Excuse me? Oh, she's on, yeah, so was she listening? So.
Me? Yes.
Yeah.
Always listening.
I don't know if you,
What's your opinion on this?
So and Ben, I'll refer to you too, but I mean, you know, in all the communities that we've had, there are radio frequency limitations to a flagless flagpole. There just is. And you know, and it is based on the technology. And I believe in our initial report, we did concur with the Verizon radio frequency engineer who did state that there were deficiencies in using that. So Ben, do you remember?
We
that?
have a statement, well, we did have a written statement from Verizon.
There is. Yes.
About the shortcomings of a flagpole.
That's right.
And the Verizon is wants to put up nine antennas, and you in a flagpole, like David said and everyone else said, they have to be stacked in sets of 3, and they can't be tilted to adjust the coverage from, you know, the companies have to adjust the coverage on the fly in case there's some disruption to the network. So they don't have that capability in the flagpole. And plus the fact that you have to increase the structure by some 25 to 30 feet.
The other issue is the radios. That is not, it's there, you can't put them in those containers. It gets too hot. So they do have to have them away from the antennas, which does
on the ground.
Yeah, And that, takes away from the amount of coverage. It will decrease the amount of coverage.
It's the coverage because a lot of the power is burned up going through the transmission lines,
That's right.
going to the antennas.
So it isn't it's not really a viable solution for what it is that they're looking to do for their objectives.
Have you been directly involved with any installations of flagless flagpoles?
We have, it's, in the areas that we were, that they have installed those, it's usually, there's usually one carrier, maybe two, that can fit in there. And then again, but it is a very shorter coverage distance, and it's very flatland. There are no, there's no terrain elements to consider, topography.
Have you seen the coverage if we use the flagless flagpole rather than increasing it?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Would there be a decrease in the proposed coverage with the flagpole?
Oh, yes, 100%.
Okay.
Without even seeing the maps, there would be.
So in your
That's a
opinion,
factual.
those two options would be off the table at this point?
Yeah, the silo, I think that was more of an aesthetic. But again, yes, I think that you have a lot of limitations with both of those options.
And I just want to say, so typically one of the questions that is asked for cell phone towers is, will this remedy the gap? There's been a gap in service that's been established. Will this remedy the gap? And of course, it doesn't have to necessarily be the best remedy if it can also just remedy it. But as it's been stated too, if Boston Corners Hamlet is certainly a concern, if it's a reduction in coverage, it's certainly probably with the flagless flagpole won't reach.
Well, we would want the best remedy anyway,
Well, I understand. I just want to just say that
coverage is
it's not, doesn't always have to be the best. It just has to be a remedy. But of course,
Any good. Right?
but if there's
We don't think that there'd be a reduction in
Flagpole
coverage.
up and it doesn't create the coverage that we need, then
Yeah.
we're
I'm
looking
just-
at adding another option or another pole or another thing.
Yeah.
And you want to limit that as much as we. could.
Understood. I just wanted to just explain that it doesn't necessarily have to be the best, as long as there is a coverage, but of course, the best, there's always the best, and
An option, that's
yeah.
it, so we can make a decision.
yeah, and again, if Boston Corners Hamlet is perhaps a concern, probably if this isn't going to extend as far, that might be a consideration for the board. And again, with the Boston Corners, that's what's encouraged with the zoning law. It is not a requirement, but it is an encouragement. And I think that's what your board is trying to just understand what the benefit could be.
We can say definitely that there would be no reduction in coverage as a result of the new tower.
Can we vote on if we
Well-
want to eliminate that or keep it?
Do you want to just go around and have each person just say if they want to keep it or?
This way it's fair.
Okay.
The flagpole and the silo. I want to eliminate those two.
I agree. Okay, let's go in order. Don.
I actually have become a fan of the lattice structure and the monopole. I think those are, if I brought it down to two, that's where I'm at right now.
Very reluctantly, and, yeah, so the two only options is.
Okay. I agree. That those two things. We're thinking about it. I'm gonna be more definitive. I'm a monopole fan. I think the lattice is a ancient piece of.
It looked very retro next to the silo.
Yeah. And I think that personally, I wouldn't want to own it because it's a maintenance issue. There's a lot of maintenance in the lattice. You gotta paint that sucker every once in a while. But yeah, so I think the monopole. I mean, I'm a practical. So structurally, I think the monopole. For us, probably
I think the monopole would be a better option.
do the best job.
And the brown color did fade into the pretty well.
Do you know, is your brown color, Corten steel?
What was that? Sorry, Corten steel.
Emily, do you understand what I'm asking?
I do not at all.
Okay.
Me neither, so.
I can tell you, basically, we choose a Sherwin-Williams paint color, if there's a specific type of brown we want, we could do it, but I don't know what that means.
Okay, I'm not gonna try to say something that's very controversial, but the border wall is made out of Corten
Got
steel.
it. We will
And-
choose a different color.
No, no, the steel is designed to rust to a point
No.
where it coats itself and it never has to be painted.
No, it would be, when we do an unpainted galvanized pole, it does do that over time, but generally the painted poles do not rust like that. They may fade over time, but they're not intended to rust. That would just be a
Yeah,
standard
but this
galvanized
steel is
pole.
intended to rust to a point where it insulates itself and that's the end of it. It
That is
doesn't
not
have
what
to
we're
be-
proposing.
I was just curious.
Is there a maintenance that you have to do, like you have to?
Yeah.
Yes, you have to paint it again.
Yes, essentially, it's kind of case by case based on weather and stuff like that, but yeah.
But you
there's-
monitor that and you.
Absolutely. So, and then also the town would as well too. Usually we'll get a call from a building inspector saying, hey, you're out of compliance, paint's fading, you need to get back up there and stuff like that. Not to backtrack, but I did want to go back to Nan's memo unless. you
Yes,
wanna-
I do too.
Okay. Unless there's any further discussion regarding the two designs. I
I
don't know
just
if
wanted
an
to
official
confirm.
motion was
I'll
made.
vote on what we were thinking.
Well, we're narrowing it down.
You still wanna wait?
Well,
That's somewhere.
are you able to, should you go through, poll the board again? Given what was just discussed on monopole versus lattice, to see if you can get to.
Okay, monopole, raise your hand. Lattice. Well,
I don't think it makes a difference.
we have to pick. one.
I want a Christmas tree. Yeah.
And
Horizon Vines.
We're gonna keep it there, blend it in, and when we look.
I think it blended pretty well, don't you think? No, with the brown?
I sit right across from him, so I don't think it'll blend in.
You're gonna get
And
good service.
you know what, you had said 8 foot proposal, because they can add 20 feet. We're back to 100 feet, they're gonna add another 20, and I see it over the sun. Sorry.
I understand. Just the statement regarding that, if they made an application or future applicant made an application to increase the height of the pole, there is an eligible facilities request law, but that still would have to be reviewed by the town and concealment elements would have to not be defeated. And also it would trigger a variance, so it would have to go through the zoning board of appeals review.
So it's not automatic.
No,
Correct.
That was the way it was.
especially with a
originally.
variance.
Correct. It would be another board would have to. approve.
So they couldn't do it on that.
Yeah.
It would be an eligible facilities request application, but it would be for another board to decide. And if we're proposing a stealth pole that is brown painted to blend in with the background, if they defeated that, then that would be a component of the application they would have to rectify. If you increased it above the ridge line in certain areas, maybe that would be something that would be defeated. This is all speculative because I don't know what the next application is, but it wouldn't be this board's review. It would have to go through the zoning board of appeals.
All right, but we're not gonna, we're not ready.
So I
yet.
know that this has been a question about the eligible facilities request. And I know that the board has asked me, so I did have this right here. So what it is that if there is a certain extension for a modification or co-location that meets certain requirements, it has to be submitted, an application is submitted to the board, but as long as there's not what's called a substantial change, the board, the local board would have to approve it. It has to be shown that it's not a substantial change. And one of the things that prevents it from being one of the things that would be shown to be a substantial change is it would be regarding the concealment is that if it would defeat the concealment element of the eligible support structure. So it's not just stealth, it's if we have a particular condition that it can't be above 100 feet because it's going to disrupt the concealment, that could be a way that it could protect the concealment. And it might be able to, it would have to be crafted in a condition to show that the height is part of the concealment.
So it's not
Status.
automatic and it would require a variance if they added 20 feet.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would have to think if it would be a variance or a new tower, but if it defeats the concealment element and would have to be crafted to explain what a concealment element could be the height, could be the color,
And it could be shut down before the variance even starts.
Yeah, it's more that they would have to come in for another application. They would have to have a new application for the issue. But just wanted to just explain that that's,
So that could be something like a resolution.
it would be a condition.
A condition.
Yeah, but it would have to be explained what the concealment element is and to make sure that if they were to come in for an additional co-location, that it's not going to disrupt that particular element.
Okay.
We're not, I mean, just to explain that, because I know that has been a discussion of the
Yeah.
topic.
Well, that's the other thing is I keep feeling like, the more co-locations, the more bigger and more horrible.
Yeah, and there's a
that it's gonna
limit
look.
to how far, for an eligible facility, how far it can extend out for it to be considered one. Again, even if they are considering adding an antenna, I think it's like the antenna, if it's outside of a width, it's 20 feet. But again, it has to make sure that there's not a substantial change.
That's for after this.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's for after, yeah.
That's it.
Really another app.
We were gonna continue with Nance. Do we need to, can we just?
I just had a comment on Nan. I had a question. You can start though. That's fine.
Yeah, so a couple of things, Dan talked about the trees, and I don't know if we would be getting into more detail to talk about this when we do the seeker, or if we should do that now.
That was where I was going, so we're on the same topic. So my conversation with Nan, I don't know if you're still online, but Nan.
I'm here.
I think there's a little bit of confusion. I thought what we had specifically said was that for the area that's the buffer area, that's natural growth, that we would not be replacing any individual trees that fell down because it's a natural growth area, so that if an individual tree fell, there's also likely new growth to go. It's a natural vegetative strip. Again, that requirement that we have the 50-foot buffer area is a requirement of the code. That wasn't exactly the reason why we're not doing the landscaping. The landscaping, as we stated before, was one, the sheer distance of the property, the size of the property, so the views from the Harlem Rail Trail were so far that the landscaping, one, wasn't going to block the tower itself, and that we put that brown privacy slats along the fence that face that area to conceal the ground equipment from there. And then from the views along Route 22, it's actually the change in topography. Route 22 sits about 12 or 15 feet higher in grade than where the facility is located. So that change in grade prevents you from seeing the base of the equipment. So that was why we had stated that landscaping from those two factors wouldn't really provide any additional benefit here. You wouldn't see the landscaping from Route 22 because of the change in topography. And then from the sheer distance that you would be seeing it from the rail trail, from the views from the east looking west, that the brown privacy slats would work. So I thought what we had discussed was that if maybe there was a tornado or something that like took out all of the trees, that maybe we'd have to do something then, and that unlikely. But if an individual tree fell down, that we wouldn't be replacing individual trees, because likely during the course of the project, it's natural growth, other new trees would grow as well. It's not like landscaping where we're trying to replace a 1-for-1. So that, I mean, we will try to keep the buffer. I don't want to replace every individual tree.
Can we talk about
Absolutely.
trees and that buffer? So one of the things that, as we all know, in our hedgerows are filled with bittersweet vines, and they are collapsing the trees. These natural areas that you're saying are not going to increase. They're going to decrease. I've walked that whole thing. And as far as like all of that view from that, you can see on 22 and along all those trees, every one of them had bittersweet vines on them.
But the specific ones along Route 22 aren't in our buffer area.
What is your buffer area?
The 50-foot up to the property line along Route 22.
What do you mean up to? What, I'm sorry, I don't understand that.
So Route 22 has a little right of way that extends along the pavement. So there is a part of the Route 22, the state right of way property, that extends off of the pavement, right? So that's a portion of the state's property that's owned on Route 22 that has a lot of trees along Route 22.
Do you know how far that is?
Yeah, it's on our plans.
But that vegetation there along 22 is part of the screening.
Right.
Yeah, but it doesn't belong to them. It doesn't.
Correct.
It No, but is it on the farm parcel?
Well, the state
I
has
mean,
pretty right.
gotta talk about screening and you're on the farmer's land.
75 feet, if not wider.
So would we, behind that area of zoning, would we put new screening that they would have to be responsible?
I don't even know where we're talking yet.
Yeah, I was referring
What's the
to
right- how
that.
Hold on.
right away.
Nan, go ahead, Nan.
No, I was referring, when I was thinking about this particular issue, it was the trees along 22 within the buffer area,
That to scale?
Within what? Sorry.
Buffer area.
the buffer area. So if there were no trees there, let's just say that there were no trees there now, I would imagine you would have wanted to have vegetation planted there for screening.
That
So
wouldn't.
you're not putting
Also,
vegetation.
have a in our SCOs about planting along the road and to screen development. Can I grab your book?
I'm not necessarily right along the road, but somewhere along there.
Right, to
But
screen
they don't
from
want,
the.
they
road
want to make
view.
sure that that screening is gonna maintain over the years. You're not guaranteeing that screening is gonna maintain over the years because it's not in the buffer zone.
I think we're combining two different
Yeah, we're
factors.
talking about two
If
different
it-
things
so
here, I think.
First thing is the requirement to maintain and screening was first talked about in landscaping. And what I believe Nan's report stated was that we stated we weren't providing landscaping because there was enough natural existing vegetation. And what I've stated was that it wasn't just that there was enough in existing natural vegetation. There's also the change in topography from Route 22. So that change in elevation kind of blocks the view of the base of the facility. So landscaping around the base of the facility, when you have that change in grade, provides no benefit. Then the views that are far distance, when we're talking from the Harlem Rail Trail, when we're looking at, almost 1,000 feet or so. Those views we had previously looked and it was discussed. Hey, can you do like a stockade fence on that side or use brown privacy slats? That was requested. We provided that. So that was what we did in place of the landscaping, which we would have a requirement if we proposed landscaping to maintain the landscaping. If you lose a landscaping tree, you definitely have to replace it. A second part of the code, we'll get to it. The second part of the code does state that you have to maintain a 50-foot buffer area along the property. That's part of the special permit approval process. So that's more of don't touch anything within that 50-foot buffer area, not maintain it or making sure that it's never changed or undisturbed. That would be an impossible task. Part of the screening we've shown in the viewshed map has actually been screening from trees along Harlem Rail Trail, alternative properties, offsite properties.
Get in, please.
Okay.
There are buffer requirements in the SCOs.
Yes.
Clearly says that the 50-foot wide average of 30 feet shall be maintained along the portion of any lot adjacent to Route 22. And this is a buffer requirement in the SCOs for under development standards.
The term maintain is where we're having a
Yes, we are very much
So
so.
that
And
means
that's where I'm talking about these vines and that these trees are going to degrade. And you're saying that's not your responsibility, that when these trees collapse and fall, that you're not going to keep that buffer.
correct, because what that says for maintain that buffer is really speaking in the language of do not disturb. We're not allowed to build within the buffer. We're not allowed to take trees out from the buffer. We're not allowed to impact that buffer. But what it does not say is that in a natural vegetative buffer growth, if one tree falls down, you need to do a 1-to-1 replacement for every existing tree that's within the buffer area. That cannot be the standard. That's just illogical, and it would result in an exaction on my client.
Let me just give you a little factual. The best I can tell from this drawing in scale, which I think it's half scale of what it says, from edge of pavement to property line is 25 feet. And from the property line, your buffer is 50 feet. So from edge of pavement, it's 75 feet.
Correct. But the requirement on the applicant is a 50-foot buffer along his proproperty.
Yeah, would have to be
Yeah,
on your
yeah, we're like, we
property,
can't go
obviously.
onto the
Yeah.
state's property and touch their
We
stuff.
would expect.
Yeah. But again, the statement that was stated regarding maintaining the buffer strip is in the context of development. We're not allowed to develop within the buffer strip. We're supposed to maintain it. I don't believe you can say you can maintain a one-to-one tree replacement.
And I guess, you know, when we talked, I don't think we were talking about a one-to-one tree replacement, but it's my opinion that the trees that are in that buffer are part of the visual mitigation. If those trees weren't there, I would imagine the planning board would have wanted other landscaping. And the fact that the trees are there mitigates the visual impact. So I was looking at the operation and maintenance plan, was that if for me, if the issue is, does the planning board consider the trees in that buffer to be part of the screening and mitigation of the visual impacts?
It respectfully submitted, we showed in the view shed maps and in the view shed maps, in the photo simulations, the real screening here is the camouflage. We're blending it in with the ridge to the background. The trees themselves aren't what is screening the tower from the views. It is the camouflaging in with the ridge to the background. Again, the trees along Route 22, you can still see the tower through the trees. The trees do provide some screening, but again, that's not what our applicant is proposing. Our applicant has chosen a property that has that here and in surrounding areas. We also chosen a property that is in a less densely populated area of the town. We can't be held to force to make sure that no other property owners build near the tower either. The issue is that the conditions today and what the code requires is that we do not disturb that 50-foot buffer strip. I don't believe that this board would have said, hey, if there's no trees here, that you guys need to plant landscaping in the event of 100-foot tall trees that would screen the facility. I don't think that that is what the code allows for or is a reasonable request. Again, the statement in here, Nan, is that to maintain all trees and to replace any tree. So any die over the life of the project. That's the language I'm taking issue with, because that is asking for that's from Nan's report. That's in her I-1 and I-2, where it talks about the O&M plan to be updated to maintain all trees shown as screening. And the resolution will say that the requirement to remain trees and replace should any die over the life of the project. That's asking for a one-to-one replacement on these trees. And again, the buffer area is really there for us to not be in the buffer area. They don't want the facility 50 feet within the right-of-way property. That's really what the main of the buffer. It's really a setback. I don't think so.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
Okay, so we're on 22, we're going by. Okay, and we do have some trees that you can't touch. We understand that. And what everybody would like to see is that as much of that tower can be blocked from that road, from that car. Okay, we're not asking for 100-foot trees. We're not asking to cover the whole entire tower. But what if, I mean, you're not going to be able to look up 100 feet from a car anyway. But what if there's a possibility of putting some evergreens there and they grow to 20 feet? And now you're looking at a wall, privacy wall of evergreens that, will make it a lot more aesthetic when you're traveling through there. And the rest of the tower can blend into the mountain at that point. You're going to have other people, especially who said she's across from it. You're going to see, but it's going to blend into the mountain over there. But you're in a car, you're at a lower level, you're not going to see 100 foot up. You're not going to see 75 feet up, but you'll see 20, 30 feet. And if you're already blocking the bottom with it going down, why couldn't we plant at least maybe 10-foot evergreens and then let them grow and make a privacy fence up to maybe 20, 30 feet at some point, and makes it a lot more aesthetic later on.
So there's a couple issues with that. One, the sheer cost. This is huge property. To create a privacy along the entire length of the property.
I'm not looking for
that. No, not along the entire property.
Just in front of the tower. That's 22.
I apologize. I thought you said along.
The fenced area from this is 60 feet.
That's
Plant
it. Just
60 feet of evergreen.
That's what I'm
This
saying.
length right here.
Yeah, I guess
60 feet.
what we were originally
This-
saying
this
is
way.
that
This is
the
60 feet.
change in topography is like a
Where the-
12-foot
where the
difference
fencing
rate.
is.
Still to
Well,
put a
this is
10-foot
the
tree there.
turnaround,
And now you see
so
the
we
top
can
of the tree.
get more.
If that tree grows to
In the buffer.
40
In the
feet,
buffer.
I don't know if
It's
that's
60
really
feet
the
average.
viewer's eye. I don't know. I don't know what the benefit is.
But they're saying now,
There
they're
is
gonna
a
have some
What if I were to
coverage,
just
right?
$5,000 into like.
They wanna be able to.
We have two
that-
conversations.
Oh, fuck,
We
I'm
have
sorry.
two conversations. We should
I
have
stopped
one.
you.
Let me address the chairman. So, yeah, I'm not opposed to landscaping at all. I understand what my attorney's trying to say. And I don't wanna put landscaping in the buffer, but it's gonna remove existing trees. But what if I were to start like a $5,000 tree fund, where if a tree falls in the future, that fund will be held in escrow by the town, and we, you could use those funds to replace the tree, or demand that I do it, and if I don't, then you have those funds to do it yourself. And we can have that fund in place in case something did happen in the future. In that buffer area there.
I mean, you got a dirt driveway
Yeah.
that nobody's gonna see, it's dirt driveway, it's just where the fencing is.
Yeah. Would you prefer that, or you only gonna try
I'm not
to?
so sure about that. I think, I'm not clear. We haven't looked, I can't see that.
I just want to add that I do want to clarify that when I made this comment in my memo, I was not referring, and I should have said that, and I should have been clear in number 2. I was not referring to the entire road frontage and the entire length of the property. I was looking at that narrow band of trees that serves what I feel is a very important role in the buffer. That's what I was looking at.
Front of the fenced area?
I agree. I think it should be, some kind of, aesthetic
Yeah, that's what I
look
want. I
in
have no
front of
problem.
it, so.
If you prefer the landscape in there, I'll do the landscape. I thought, having the natural buffer there would be better
I
than just
think if
replacing, but.
you go in and you clean up what's there, the vines and everything, it's gotta be natural looking, it can't look like a straight row.
Yeah, I think technically I don't have like the lease rights to do it, but I'm pretty sure the landlord would allow me to plant trees. I'd have to go back to them, but. If that's something you think is better and less risky, and obviously would then give you the right to, in your resolution. Demand that any tree I plant be maintained, as opposed to natural growth. I have no objection to that as a condition.
We need to
That's
put this on the plan.
I think that's
exactly where
Well, no, they could put it on a plan.
Actually, speaking of the plans and going back to-
Suggestion as the extent of landscaping, I don't see them planting the entire length of the property.
No.
I don't think they need to screen the dirt driveway.
I had an idea that may actually help this and the other issue as it relates to the additional mapping. Obviously, I do need to try to get the trees down by March 31st, assuming this is gonna be approved. And the shot clock, that under federal law, you're supposed to make a decision, expires tomorrow. What if we extend the shot clock 2 months? Within the next month, I get you revised maps, at least so Evans can respond to you more fully about what streets are gonna be covered to answer your question. I revised the plans to include landscaping there. With the understanding, well, ideally, we would close the public hearing now, but since I'm gonna make additional submission. With the understanding that you'll close the public hearing in March. But that now, since technically I don't need a tree removal permit in this town to remove those 7 trees. You tell Ed and everybody in the town that I'm authorized to remove the trees now at my own risk and my own cost. So that I can give you 2 months to review this, look at the landscaping plans. You can then approve me in April. But I don't have to wait till November to build it. I can build because those trees are out of the way now. So tonight you'd be willing to grant me permission to remove those trees.
I don't think
extend the
we
shot
can do
clock 2
that.
months.
I don't think we can do that, but I think the farmer could remove this tree.
Well,
No,
it's
no,
weird because,
I get the state.
yeah.
So it would not be a violation of the code to remove the 7 trees if the landowner did it on his own accord. Is that what I'm
That would
hearing?
be my opinion. Check with Ed.
Well, it would be a violation of feature for 670. Yeah.
So you're considering that would be a segmentation issue, correct?
Well, it just says, 617 says, but, after an application's been filed, you can't alter the site.
I know, yeah.
During the course of the
No, I understand that. So that's our issue. So,
We're not in a rush for this.
I know, but. the
Sorry,
community-
to be honest.
The community does want coverage, and so people are in a rush for it. And we're hoping that nobody desperately needs this tower along with 22 and 1 time. But it does make a matter to me as the applicant. It costs me money. unnecessarily, in my opinion, to delay this another 8 months. So it is an important factor for me. And you know, the application is complete and compliant with the code, in my opinion, worthy of approval now. And you don't even need to do the mapping in the trees, you can just approve it, make it a condition of approval that I put the landscaping in regardless. So I'm just trying to find a way, and give you what you want, and not shoot myself in the foot at the same time.
The other component is that I believe that the board has enough information in front of it, especially if it chooses between a lattice tower and monopole design. I think either of those two options, you could still, without choosing a particular one, you could, based on both options, still make a secret determination. So the issue that was just raised about removing the 7 trees is that the secret determination would prohibit us doing that until the secret, a neg deck or secret was completed. If secret was completed, the answers regarding the other service areas, the answers regarding landscaping, those could be provided and reviewed as part of the special permit and site plan approvals. And we could consider that those aren't some significant enough changes to change this board's opinion on environmental impact. I would just supplant that as a way to move forward with the application, still get the board the questions it wants, and also not create an 8-month delay in getting in a tower to fill a significant gap in service, which we have had people complain affected them in emergency situations.
I think they.
How about if we say you can remove those trees, but then the application fails, that you would replace?
So no.
you mean
So what I'm
the-
saying is that, so for what we've just heard right now is that the town doesn't have a law that prohibits the tree removal. However, because this applicant has submitted an application that's
Yep, you're
undergoing
not-
secret,
Right.
we cannot remove those trees until
Right.
this board takes an action on secret. So
Yeah.
if this board were to take an action on secret before the April 1st deadline, and then we were allowed
Okay,
to remove
okay.
the trees, you can still answer the other questions before making a final decision on the application, but the important gating item would be removed.
Secret doesn't affect anything with the application either.
We're not approving the application.
We're just approving
Making
secret.
a declaration.
The big question on
So-
seeker is the visual impact.
Right, but we already got approval with the visual impact with them
Well,
already.
we gotten the information. The question is how we rank that.
We
how
can,
we
we
assess
can
that
put it
visual
in
impact.
as, you know, they're willing to work with the visual impact and they're willing to give us the information we need. for
Well, those are the mitigations we can put in.
Right, as a condition, that's all. I think the seeker would help everybody.
Okay. Do we want to finish CEQA?
I think so. What do you think?
Dan, you there? Yeah.
I'm here.
Hello.
You want to continue with seeker tonight?
How long would it take?
Well, let me get my files out. You have to finish, part 2 to cover the remaining questions that weren't completely answered. And then you have to complete part 3, which analyzes whether any of the moderate to large impacts that you uncovered in part 2 are considered significant. And that was what kind of the questions that I posed when I first came on. Those are some of the questions that you would ask to make a determination of whether the visual impacts are significant or not. So you can certainly go back and do, it was question 9, 17, and 18, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I just, maybe one thing, just to put into context, when we're talking about visibility for SECRA, it is different from your code requirement. So visibility under SECRA is, they have a DEC visual policy. Mere visibility alone is not enough to create a significant impact for visibility. Nan should be able to confirm this. So you have to have an impact to an identified aesthetic resource. So I wanted to put that into the context when we're reviewing stuff.
Nan, I have a question if you don't mind. Are you satisfied with the conditions that they have provided for us to do secret? In your opinion?
I think the question is do you have enough information to answer those questions? So I think that you know, if you're satisfied that you've
Yeah.
homed in on the monopole as the design that you want, and then you don't need any other further information about the flagpole or the silo or, you know, of those other mitigations, that alternative sites. If you're satisfied and you can answer the question, is then say, does the monopole, have you mitigated the adverse impacts by having a brown monopole? I think that's what, when you get to part 3, that you have to answer that question. I don't think I'm the right person to say if I'm satisfied with it or not.
Okay.
And just for the record, right now, currently, there is no moderate to large impacts selected on the EA part 2.
So let's,
I think, in my opinion, I think they've answered everything, and I think we do have that.
well, we
option,
don't,
but
Well, you haven't done
Question
question 9, 18,
Question
17, and 18 yet.
So
That's where the effort should go.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for you. So you do have to take public comment tonight, and I don't know whether you want to receive that comment before you go through this exercise or afterward.
Well, okay, but let's see. Well, according to Nan's checklist, she was suggesting we close the public hearing before we even do this.
Well, I didn't have,
Oh,
it wasn't necessarily in that order.
can we make it a quick public hearing? Can we get those people that would like to speak
it's not gonna
to?
be quick.
Might not have an option.
Do we need another night to do this? It's 9:45.
Yeah.
I mean, you continued the,
We can just do secret tonight, keep the public hearing open. I mean, you're not gonna make a final vote on it. This is just for state review purposes. Keep the public hearing open. We'll do it again in March. We can take everybody's comments before you make a decision. Not even just focus on secret, just to get through the administrative process of this review. That's basically.
I thought we had, wait, do we have to close the public hearing before we do the secret? That's not sure.
No.
no.
Okay.
And just looking ahead to finish seeker, part 3, the significant work in part 3 is really if you analyze any of those that have moderate to large impact. So when you finish question 9, 17, and 18, if you have not chosen that any of those things have moderate to large impacts, then the analysis of part 3 is it's very straightforward, because there's really nothing to evaluate. We would still have to write a rationale for whatever decision you make, but part 3 is only for moderate to large impacts.
Can we suggest that we schedule
Okay,
a special hearing?
There's another night.
Scuttlebutt with the board that maybe we're gonna have a special meeting shortly.
Yeah.
So we're not pressured by the clock. It's getting late. We're already here almost 3 hours. What's the preference?
Yeah, I think a special meeting.
Yeah, because some of us don't have the documents, and if we make mistakes on it. it's not gonna help us.
Let's look at a calendar and see what we can do.
Yeah.
I'm available.
Yeah,
Well,
just for
and-
the
and
hours.
Be public comment and seeker, both.
If that's the case, would you wanna receive the public comments now, close the public hearing and do a special?
You know, it's
meeting?
almost 10 o'clock.
I think I was in the hearing until 12:30 on Monday, so it's particular.
I'm not-
You know, the only thing I want to say is there are people that have been waiting all night
Yes,
under the impression that they're gonna have an opportunity to
yes.
speak tonight, and I would ask you to consider that as
I
part
would
of
do
your.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
Good.
let's do that.
We can't do secret votes.
We can't do both.
All right, do we want to pick a date or we want to do the?
Well, for got our calendars open.
19,
Um,
12, 19.
The 19th is the town board meeting, and there is already a special town board funding.
the 10th, okay.
How
So
much
the
time
12th,
do you need?
next Thursday.
For a reasonable amount.
It's next Thursday, isn't it?
We have to
Sounds
give
good to
notice?
me.
But I can
He
do
has
it
an
tonight.
I'm away from the 11th to the 18th.
That's the other problem. We keep having a lot of people missing.
Yeah, I wish we had more board meetings. So what dates are up? What dates are up?
No, I don't think so. It can
Not gonna be
be.
any.
We've done Wednesdays. Is Wednesday work?
Wednesday was.
11 first for us.
Works for me.
I'm fine.
Yeah, the 11th.
I think there's like some. Reasonable, yeah, and all the states we make do it. You only like the gal. I have to be at work early.
Right.
The 11th is really tough for me.
What's early?
I'm like racing up here.
Oh.
I won't do that.
Okay, so. Can I
Do we
make
have-
the motion?
Be there.
You won't be.
Yeah.
And available?
Available.
What,
You need,
what day? I've heard you throw out a couple dates. What date?
11th?
That's fine.
The 10th I could do, I can't do, the 11th to the 18th. I'm done.
There's a town.
Yeah, there's a good chance I
Yeah, we
can't make
can't
the
do
11th. It's like a little too close for me.
Right now, like, you don't have a forum for the 11th. sounds like. So
Well,
I-
well,
We
we
have
Well,
other
we-
board
we have
members.
other
There's
people
almost-
for that.
I know, but they're not here to say if they
Yeah.
can make it, right?
I know, so we can set the date and then do a poll real quick, kind of thing tomorrow to see if they can make it.
And the problem with the 12th, there's something here.
The 12th is,
They can't.
Oh, they can, oh.
What about the 19th? Because that was no good.
Yeah,
That's a town
town.
board meeting.
What about any date the week of the 23rd? I know that's like right before.
It's getting right to the meeting now, yeah.
But again, I
Yeah.
think the purpose of it would be that it'd be a special meeting and it wouldn't have other applicants on for solar and other, lengthy meetings.
Yeah.
Focus in on one topic and get through stuff.
How about Monday next week? We got Monday open,
That's
I'm fine with the 9th as well.
the 9th.
I can't be here, but Benjamin.
I can be here.
you can-
Yeah, I cannot, I'm booked on the 9th.
Can somebody be here to run Zoom?
Well, nobody else can.
Don.
Nan's not- Nan's can't.
Phil's will be back.
Okay, and Dan can't make it. Nan, what, can you make? What is your,
I can make, next week, I can do any evening except the 9th. The week of the 16th, I'm largely open as well. For the evenings.
Can we do the 13th?
Friday?
Friday, Valentine's
Friday the
Day.
13th is a lucky day for you.
Not a lucky day for us.
Probably the following
I'm
week
just
is
looking at what
President's
I'm around.
Week, so that's short a day.
Yeah,
A lot of people are out
Question.
of town.
Honestly.
you're not
I
around.
mean, can we bite the bullet and just get it done?
No,
No.
no, no.
I gotta be up at 4 a.m. I'm making the suggestion. Everybody's here.
Hold on, Bill's answering me on the 11th. He would make 4, which would make a 4.
I can think now.
So go for the 11th, and if I can get there, I'll get there. So,
Well,
And you could.
we don't know about Jessica, Christine.
Or did she have to step out? I know she had child. She had childcare she was doing.
So we're gonna try the 11th?
Oh,
One sec.
yeah,
What time on the 11th?
What's the 7th appointment?
what time? Normal time?
Yeah, 7:00. I don't know, you wanna make it earlier?
I can do earlier.
Yeah, I don't mind.
If you can make it,
Six.
well.
If anybody else.
Is early help you?
But later would be better for me.
Later would be better for you. Let's leave it at 7.
Christine, does that work for you?
We're talking about the 11th, Wednesday.
Yeah, 7 PM.
Yeah.
There we go.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
We need a motion.
If we have to cancel, we'll cancel, and that'll only because we don't have a quorum, but right now it looks like we have a quorum, so. We will be having a special meeting for cell tower, so can I get a motion to schedule?
I make a motion to schedule the Homeland Tower special meeting for Wednesday, February 11th at 7 PM.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay,
Okay.
all right.
All right, so we're gonna hear
From the public.
You need any of the, consultants, man or George, James on the?
for then to do that.
Definitely
Ann,
Ann.
No, for right now.
Now,
Here, right now,
I
but-
don't know.
I don't think so, I think they can go to bed.
I mean, I don't know if you want Dan on, but I just figured.
No, I think, yeah.
We can take. the
We need
comments
Nan on the
and we can do
11th.
next-
We need Nan on the 11th, and
And they can address the questions.
no
at that
else,
point.
what else do we need? What else do we need on the 11th? We need, Cityscape, yeah, Cityscape probably should be on. Is that okay, Cityscape, you there?
Yes, we're here. Yes, I can be here and Ben can be there.
Okay,
So
all right,
Anthony
so
can't, but we both can.
11th, the 11th of February.
Okay,
I don't think so. I don't think we need,
Respectively, request that you would, you're gonna go through Secra on visual components and easier to do.
okay, you're paying for it. so.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I think
yeah,
part of it was that needed to be discussed. I think they need more funds. That's in the list.
I did get a call from your supervisor, and I'm sure we'll be able to get the check to you guys as soon as we get the count.
It's on my to-do list for Saturday.
yeah, tell them not to put it in the court mailbox.
It's just in red on the thing here, so.
I know, but they came when nobody was here. All on board for the 11th, and you guys, and you. No, they're dismissed. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Somebody might as well get some sleep.
All right, we're all good? Okay, anybody from the public that would like to speak?
We've got 2 people live.
Please be as brief as you can. I gotta get to the floor.
You were gonna stay till midnight.
I get it done. I would.
All right,
Oh.
let somebody in and
You
introduce
get y'all.
themselves.
What? Andrew?
Yes. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hi. So my name is Andrew Campanelli. I'm an attorney. I spoke here before. Again, I handle cell tower case across the entire United States. I've been doing it for 30 years. And also litigating case under the Telecommunications Act of 1996. I have more than a mild amount of experience with this. The board has asked some very pertinent and very intelligent questions this evening. I want to address some of those questions because you've received some misinformation and you've received some areas where information critical to your decision is clearly lacking. So one of the important questions I heard, and quite frankly, I'm worried about you being stripped of your power by the Telecommunications Act. I don't want that to happen. So one of the important questions that board members have asked is, what about this adverse aesthetic impact? Who gets to say if there's an adverse aesthetic impact? Is it up to one board member, the other? Here's the test. It is up to you as the board. You, the board, are the finder of fact under both federal and state law. It is up to you to determine whether or not the proposed installation will inflict a significant adverse aesthetic impact, not just on any general area, but on what the town has described as its most valuable scenic asset. That's in your code, and that's in your plan. This is described by the town as your most valuable scenic asset, the Route 22 corridor. So it's entirely up to your hands, and whatever you decide is whatever you decide. Now, one of the things that the attorney for the applicant did is he made sure to get up and ask your consultant, have they established a significant gap in personal wireless services? There's a reason he did that. Because under federal law, even if putting this tower here would violate your code,
You must grant their application if they prove on the record that a denial of the application would effectively prohibit an identified carrier from providing personal wireless services. Now, to do that, they have to prove to your satisfaction two things. Number one, that this tower is necessary to remedy a significant gap in a carrier's services. And number two, that their proposed tower is the least intrusive means of remedying that gap. Based upon the record, it is factually impossible for you to make that finding. And the reason is they haven't given you the data and evidence you need to make that determination, nor, unfortunately, has Cityscape told you to get that data. What blew my mind in this case is, everyone knows, this proposed tower, if it goes up, is not going to remedy your coverage issues in Ankrum. Everybody knows it. So you have something called a smart planning provision. The way local governments apply the Telecommunications Act is they apply their code in a manner that they strategically site towers to achieve three objectives simultaneously. You want to let Verizon saturate the town with coverage, but you want to make sure that they're strategically placed so you minimize the number of towers you need to provide that coverage. And you want to avoid, to the greatest extent possible, unnecessary adverse impacts on things like premium scenic resources. And the only way to do that is to require the applicant to give you probative data. And what is that? Cityscape knows what's needed. What you're supposed to do is get a drive test. Let the applicant tell you the minimum signal strength necessary to maintain reliable wireless service in Ankrum. They do a drive test and they record the actual signal strength throughout the entire town. You get the data. The data shows you the existence of gaps, the locations of the gaps, and the boundaries. That empowers you to make a determination as to where towers should be strategically placed so you can satisfy all of the gaps while using the minimum number of towers. There's a superior alternate location where in the portion of the town that's far more populated, the Boston corner. That's got a much greater population and a much greater need for coverage. But for reasons that I can't understand, Cityscape, in their first review, said, somebody did a drive test 2 years ago, but we're going to rely upon the propagation data provided by the applicant. Nobody should do that. And I'm very troubled by Cityscape, and I'm going to be very candid with you. I have watched Cityscape for years advise towns. There hasn't been a single case I've ever seen, and it may be in 2 decades, where Cityscape ever said that the applicant doesn't have a significant gap in coverage, including in cases where I believe there was no gap at all. And the fact that Cityscape hasn't even asked for you to ask the applicant for a drive test, when everyone knows this is not going to remedy your coverage needs, blows my mind. I just don't understand it. So what I'm telling you is this. You don't have the data necessary to enable you to make an informed decision. Even if there's a gap in service here, there is nothing in the record to establish that the proposed installation is the least intrusive means of remedying the gap at issue. You don't even know what frequencies there are gaps in. You heard CitySpec's engineer talk about mid-band, high-band. Verizon provides its wireless services on 10 different frequencies. And to establish a gap in service, Verizon has to show that its end-use customers can't use its phone to connect to a landline on any of the 10 frequencies. You don't have a drive test for any of those frequencies. And by the way, for your attorney, the case in point is Extenet versus the Village of Flower Hill, my case. And they showed Verizon went in and said, we have a gap in 5G service. You must give us the tower. No. They have to give you probative data that there's a significant gap in all 10 frequencies. Now, someone else mentioned, and this is critical to the adverse aesthetic impact. It's been discussed that perhaps once it's built, Homeland can increase the height. They can, period, end of story. The reason? Under the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act of 2012, once a tower is built, they're able to increase the height of the tower, increase the power output, and increase the equipment on the tower, as long as the increase doesn't substantially increase the overall size of the overall facility. The FCC has determined that to be 20 feet. Now, it was mentioned, but you can argue that they can't do it if it would defeat a stealth aspect. None of the proposed towers you're looking at are stealth towers. There's a clearly established meaning in federal law what that means. A monopole. which is a monopine pole disguised as a pine tree, is a stealth installation. Concealed installations where they build a cupola atop a building or a clock or a church steeple where you can't see the antennas, that is a stealth installation. This lattice tower they're proposing, or the pole or the flagpole, they are not stealth facilities. Yes, they can walk in and say, we want to add 20 feet to this tower, and they have to file applications. I don't care if it's a permit or a variance. You are powerless to say no, period, end of story. So when you consider the potential adverse aesthetic impacts, think about the fact that once it's built, Homeland Towers, which only makes money by leasing space or capacity on the towers to the carriers, they will be able to increase the height of this tower by 20 feet, and you will be powerless to stop them. There's no gray area here. That's black letter law, period, end of story. Does anybody have any questions? I'd be happy to answer them. Now, I've gone through the fact that they're claiming they need signal strengths, what they can't justify. There's no basis for that. So I respectfully submit you have the power to deny this application, as you should. However, you must make factual determinations. If you don't, Homeland will file a lawsuit, and I've dealt with many of them. You have to make factual determinations with regard to an effective prohibition. You must determine first if the applicant has shown that an identified carrier suffers from a significant gap in its personal wireless services, meaning it's provided you with probative evidence to show that Verizon's end-use customers cannot use their phones to connect to a landline using any of the frequencies with which Verizon provides its wireless services to its end-use customers. That's part one. Part two, they have to show that their proposed installation on the site they want it, at the specific location they want it, at the specific height they want it, is the least intrusive means of remedying that gap, and there are no possible alternative, less intrusive locations, not based upon attorney argument, not based upon a firm, consulting firm, that relies upon the data provided by the applicant instead of getting their own data or telling you to get a drive test. They have to provide probative data to show there's no possible less intrusive alternative location, and that hasn't happened here. And as far as any threats of litigation, I'm going to reiterate this. I put it in my last brief. Threats of litigation under the TCA are entirely hollow. And that's because if you do what you should do respectfully under your code and deny this application in the most important aesthetic resource you have, and Homeland Towers sues you in federal court and wins under the Telecommunications Act, you will not be required to pay them a penny. They can't recover attorney's fees and they don't get damages. So threats of litigation are hollow. Now, I've submitted a brief some time ago, and everything I've put in that brief is accurate, and it's accurate today. So I don't need that. I do need to cover anything further. But if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer this. Again, I've been doing this 30 years. As we speak, I'm defending local governments from New Jersey to Arizona to California. I know the TCA. I know what local governments must do. I know what they can do. And I know what they must do to not be stripped of their power. You have to make factual determinations. So please, whatever decision you make a decision, make factual determinations, put it in your written decision, cite the evidence that served as the basis for your decisions, and issue a separate written decision to do so before the shot clock expires. So thank you for affording me the opportunity. And I know you've been there already 3 hours, so I'm not going to go any longer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Next.
Yeah, there's one other person.
Okay.
Walter.
Okay, I've unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Wally Williamson. I'm a member of the CAC, and I've been asked by the CAC just to ask the following short questions. In early December of 2025, the CAC submitted 3 letters raising concerns about the applicant's failures to meet specific requirements of the telecommunications law and the scenic corridor law. So we were concerned about this. If the planning board has received any oral or written advice from its attorneys addressing these concerns, would the planning board inform the CAC of the details of any oral opinion received from counsel, or give us a copy of any written opinion so that the CAC can understand the planning board's position regarding the CAC's concerns? And if the planning board has not received any opinions from its counsel addressing the issues raised by the CAC, would the planning board now request advice from counsel addressing these concerns that the CAC raised? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
One more person.
Okay.
Mike.
Oh, sorry. I just want to highlight that there's been a lot of talk today about tower design, but there's been no discussion about minimum necessary height. As a reminder, Local Law 1 states, among many other things, towers shall not be higher than the minimum height necessary. Now, Mr. Kenny highlights that the goal of the tower is to provide service on Route 22. In their own RF analysis, shows no discernible incremental low band coverage on Route 22 at 100 feet than at 60 feet. So why is there no discussion as to whether a 60-foot tower is appropriate? Perhaps a 40-foot tower. No one has asked anyone to do an analysis on a 40-foot tower. Now, so there's no doubt if the stated goal is to provide coverage on Route 22, which is the only part of Ankrum that would be benefiting from this tower, the low band coverage is sufficient, right? They may make an argument that a higher tower will provide mid-band coverage a little further on Route 22. But I've been a telecom analyst for over 25 years, and I can tell you if the purpose is to serve a few cars driving on Route 22, adding 2100 megahertz coverage will make absolutely no difference. So I think it's pretty clear that a 60-foot tower is more than sufficient, and perhaps a 40-foot tower would be sufficient too, and maybe even lower if the board were to ask Homeland to run that analysis as its right is to do. I also just want to make it clear for the record that earlier today, Mr. Kenny asked Ben at Cityscape if the tower will improve coverage based on the application, not based on any independent analysis by Cityscape. In fact, because Cityscape, as you just heard from Mr. Campanelli, has not done any independent analysis. They have not requested any independent analysis. All their analysis, as I have said before, is based entirely upon the application. They're just repeating Homeland's application. You have no independent analysis whatsoever. And so when Mr. Kenny asks Cityscape to attest that the RF coverage is, that there is a coverage gap, he's just asking them to repeat what's in their own application. I also want to make one last point. Homeland's representative talks about his economic interest in attracting another carrier, his economic interest in what happens when the tower is delayed because it's taking a sufficient time for the board to make a decision. But what about the town's economic interest? As a reminder, the zoning law specifically refers to the importance of preserving scenic resources within the town, enhancing the town's attractiveness to its citizens as well as visitors and tourists. Sticking a giant pole in the middle of the town's most important scenery is not good for the economy. That will not attract people to buy homes nearby. That will not attract people to retire in this community. That will not attract people to hike the wonderful trails nearby. That will have an economic impact. Right? One of my prior letters, Columbia County gets something like 12% of its revenue from tourists. The last thing this town wants to do is dissuade tourists from coming. The last thing it wants to do is dissuade people from settling there in their retirement, where they're going to pay local contractors and service people to help them with their homes. That brings money into the economy. So let's not forget, there is a real economic impact to Ankrum from building this tower by dissuading people from living there. It's not just the impact to the builder of Homeland Tower, who's going to make a lot of money by sticking it right there. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
For continuing to listen to us. I have a few things that I wanted to mention, but I did also, there were a few, I won't mention everything that I feel was misstated today, but there was one thing that kind of hurt me when it was like, oh, you'll only see it for 1 mile on Route 22. It's just not factually true. You can see the silo, so you know where you'll see the tower. And when you enter into Ankrum and you see the sign that says, "Welcome to Scenic Ankrum," you will see the tower above the horizon at that point. And as you drive along Route 22, you will continue to see it. And when you turn left into the CLC area, you will see the tower when the sign says, "Welcome to our conservation area." So while the simulation or that map that he showed claims 1 mile, it's just not factually correct. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention was also around the flagpole. If you want design information on the flagpole, you can ask for that design information for flagpole. Right now, the statements that are being said are like, oh, in this current form. Well, we're not asking about in this current form. And firstly, because we're talking about coverage on Route 22. And secondly, a flippant statement thrown out is not facts, is not data, is not actually looking at a real comp to the designs that have been put in front of you. I did also want to talk about minimum height for a minute, because I do think it's really important, and there was material that was shared with propagation maps, right? We know that they're not reliable. We could see even from the consultant that he wasn't able to read the propagation maps. But let's take them for what they are and just take the applicant's information. And this is referring back to the applicant's propagation maps for 100, 80, and 60 feet that were in the, I think it was October material. I encourage you to please look at those maps. Look at Route 22 and look at the coverage shift on Route 22 from 100 to 80 to 60. It's not noticeable. There's no change. Just look at where the Ankrum sign is, where you enter into Ankrum, and then just it's one of the things that's probably easiest to see on those maps, right? You can see it's maybe seconds difference at the different heights of the tower, and they show that in their own propagation maps that the consultant even says are not sufficient, but let's take them for what they are. So I do, it was said so many times, and I completely understand the confusion, by the way, with like, are we talking about coverage on Route 22? Because in that same material, they circle, and in reasons why they have the 100 feet, they circle regions outside of Route 22. So confusion is clear, and that was never made clear. But tonight it was made clear that we are talking about coverage on Route 22. And so I encourage you, just look at those maps and look at how much it changes, and you'll see that it's so negligible. And then, and then the other thing is on the, when we're talking about 100, it's actually 120, or 80, it's actually 100, right? So if we later want to add carriers, which is something that has been mentioned before, just add the 20 feet on top. Start with the lower one. Why are we adding a higher tower than we need? And why are they talking about future technology when you as a board said that you're not designing for future technology? These are things that just don't make sense. And then the second thing that I wanted to mention in the material, in the January material that was submitted, is that it was kind of shocking to me. They say that the silo is out of place. They say that a 100-foot silo is out of place, aesthetically out of place in the area, which I just think points to how out of place this tower will be. It is also not aesthetically matching the area. And then you've already talked about the landscaping requirements. I saw that call out in the recent material as well. I think it's very problematic that if this project were to go ahead in the stars, that we're not actually protecting what they have put in their visual analysis as what it looks like when you're driving along. I mean, right at the beginning, in the very first material, the application talks about screening because of the trees that were there. And now they're backing away from that because they don't want to touch the trees. It's crazy to me. So, and then the final thing that I wanted to mention, and actually it came to mind during the solar conversation, which is that there have been no visual assessments from homes. Linda will be looking outside her window and will be seeing this tower every day, and there has been no assessment from her home. I will be seeing it every day. There is a new letter by Mr. Thomas, who has property right across from the tower. He will see it every day, along with his neighbors who live on Catalano Road. So I please urge you to also understand, as it is required by law, the impact to individuals and individuals' homes, the visual impact that these homes are. Again, I had a bunch of other, but I will keep it short as you asked me to. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No one on Zoom?
Excuse me?
No one on Zoom.
Okay, good.
Good evening, I'm Steve Famey. I'll be quick. All those prior comments are a tough act to follow. I just want to make an appeal to common sense on 2 points. One is aesthetic. It's an incredibly scenic corridor. Obviously, there's Over Mountain Conservancy to the east. There's the incredible Taconic State Park to the west. There's trails all around, and right down the middle is the rail trail. I struggle to think of a worse location for a 100-foot or 120-foot industrial-looking cell tower. I really don't have any legal points to make. It's just kind of a common sense point. I mean, we all know that. And secondly, another common sense point, like I hear this, oh, it's a safety issue. People can't call 911. The safety issue is people talking on their cell phones while they're speeding down Route 22 at 55 miles an hour. So maybe we want to, vote on the side of safety by turning down the tower, vote on the side of common sense by turning down the tower for aesthetic reasons. I know there's legal reasons that you can make that vote as well. I'm not the best one to articulate those. I'm just, making a call for common sense tonight. Thank you. And thank you for your service. It's hard to sit here as a member of the public for so long. You all do this as volunteers, and genuinely, thank you each and every one.
Thank you.
Anyone else? What?
Yes, hi, Linda Campbell, White House Crossing Road. Anyway, question. This tower you propose, will it serve Route 22 by the gravel mine? By the parking area? That's a big gap when you go north of White House Crossing.
You're talking about the scenic overlook?
Yeah, it's part of the scenic overlook.
And the gravel area north of that.
Right.
Okay.
So it's part of the whole valley.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. And that there's a gap in service. Are we looking, can you connect to that? Or are we just looking at this little piece on Route 22? Because you know what? I can tell you, I go down to the Ankrum, welcome to Ankrum sign, and I can call people. Just pull over on Carson Road and hello, how are you? And I've done the loop and I have been able to call people. If it drops, but then you know what? It drops for 3 minutes, but then I can pick up. I did a test with a few people and, found out, yes, there are little gaps, but you can have things. And then since I've been there for over 60 years, for the valley to change in this way, I've stayed because of the beauty. I've enjoyed. I work in Poughkeepsie. I come home every day. I look at the mountains. I look at the valley and say, I'm so happy to be a resident of Ankrum and pay more taxes to be here. Otherwise, the tower goes up. I'm looking for a decrease. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much. And I do appreciate your time, your attention, your dedication, your love of the community. And I know you're all thinking very hard and it's a difficult position. So thank you.
Got it.
Just one quick thing. I know you have to evaluate whether it's a moderate or serious impact. Whether you go for the tower or not, how could you not recognize it as at least a moderate impact on this area? I just don't understand. I look at the photograph and I feel manipulated. It's taken from a vantage point where there's a telephone tower in the foreground that dwarfs the tower. There's a line going across, there's a tree in front. You're manipulated. I'm an architect in training, and I have training as an architect, and I've manipulated photographs to the advantage of the design. So I get this. They haven't shown you pictures along 22. If you go past that telephone pole, it's a whole other story. You have trees, and you have a tower sticking way up above the trees, or approaching from the other side. Going south on it, you're going to see this tower. It's going to stick up above the trees. If you say that it's not a moderate impact, I just won't believe. You can still go ahead and vote yes, but I cannot believe that you would vote that this was at least a moderate impact on the environment. I think it's much more serious. And anyway, I just had to say that because I feel like they kept that picture up on the wall and it's very manipulative. And we've all been tricked into believing there's not a huge impact. There's a huge visual impact.
You state your name for the record, sir.
Tom Siano on the CAC.
You know what, I'd like to just state my opinion on something. What we haven't heard is the people that don't have service. The possibility of an emergency where somebody doesn't have the ability to make a phone call in that area. I live here too, and I came from Long Island. I work in the city. I enjoy coming here and living here. I love the mountains. I love the views. At what point, I mean, cell phones are a way of our life, everybody's life, connectivity. When I first came here, I had no internet service because Spectrum wouldn't move 400 feet up the road for me. I had to fight them to get internet service. To me, cell phone service, especially when a lot of people don't have landlines, is a necessity. I'm with you with the aesthetics, and we are trying to make a decision on, what benefits everybody. We're not saying just do it, but we have to also think of, what this gap in coverage is going to solve, how it's going to help things. If there was another way of, changing this, making it aesthetically better. I think we've asked every question we could. We're trying to decide the best outcome. You heard me ask, how do we decide what the best looking thing is? But we live here too. We hear your voices, we hear what you're saying. But, we also have to have the ability to make a phone call in emergency. Okay, but I know there's so many spots you can.
That brings me back to that. I said that a long time. And it's not something that.
We're not trying to argue with you or fight with
No,
you.
I'm sorry.
We're just trying to, to make a decision and help everybody to try and get to
David, you're the last, go ahead.
Are not provided. When you have a 911 emergency, it will reach into any carrier in an area.
There's spots that mine don't work at all.
Respectfully speaking, there was just a national outage for Verizon recently. Verizon put out in their advertisements to people that they may have problems accessing 911. They may have problems making 911 phone calls in that outage. Again, emergency calls aren't just 911. There's other issues. I'll be very, very quick. One comment was at the first public hearing, there were public who stated that they didn't have ability to make phone calls. There were people who claimed about certain emergency services where they had broken down on the side of the road and they couldn't make a phone call for several times. In fact, there was someone who had a heart attack. So there was public comments on that issue, and I'll be very brief on everything else. Mr. Campanelli's statements have been the same statements now for the last few months. It's also been answered by me and the consultant. So showing the gap on 10 frequencies, your consultant has already said we show the gap on the lowest frequency. The way it works is the lowest frequency propagates the furthest. So you have the gap on the lowest, and you have the gap on all the higher up ones. He keeps bringing up Extenet Flower Hill. I know I had a cover letter submitted that showed you there was much more recent cases than Extenet Flower Hill. And I also went into detail about what Extenet Flower Hill stated. It talked about a signal strength of -85 and how that is too strong of a signal strength to say a gap in coverage. We've shown -85, -95, and -105 gap in coverage. So that's been asked and answered. Regarding stealth installation is a term of art, but what the actual law says is concealment elements. Painting a facility brown to blend it in with the background is absolutely a concealment element. Regarding EFR, it's purely speculative. The law is the law. It's the same thing as if we built under a zoning code limitation that said the building could be built up to 30 feet tall, and then we built a building that's 20 feet tall. You can't deny the application because the code allows it to go up to 30 feet. That's not the applicant's application. The law says that it can go up higher. That's what the law says. Mr. Evans and Cityscape have confirmed that 95 is the minimum height necessary for Verizon, but they've also stated it's likely that another carrier could get coverage at 85 and 75, so that there would be co-location potential in theory for other carriers below Verizon. So they've made it, although it's speculative, there is a reason to believe why if a co-located carrier came on, they wouldn't create the additional expense of extending the tower if they could go 10 feet below and still provide coverage. But also that's not the applicant's application. Regarding the independent analysis, same thing with any application that comes to a planning board. We submit plans of the facility and you review the plans. Planning board doesn't draft their own plans of a project. So again, Cityscape is required to review the information that's provided. They have an expert opinion on the information that's provided, but it's not their job to have their own independent radio frequency analysis. However, in their reports, they did do their own analysis of alternative sites. So they did do some of their own work on this, on the information. Regarding the scenic resources, again, I do understand everybody's really important about the scenic corridor overlay zone, but again, the town code says you can put a tower of 100 feet in the scenic corridor overlay zone. So there really is, I understand the importance of the scenic corridor overlay zone, but there really is a intention by the town to have towers in the scenic corridor overlay zone. And regarding economic impacts, while there's been no evidence to support any of the statements that were made, your cell phone connecting to the network, that is an economic benefit. People do business on their cell phone calls. So having connectivity, being able to make cell phone calls, being able to use your cell phone for emails and business opportunities, there are economic benefits to having coverage. Again, regarding having the review of the visual impacts, you again bring it back to the fact that an individual property owner's impact isn't what's important. If for SECR standpoint, it literally says an individual property owner's impact is not as important as a publicly aesthetic resource. So if it was a park that could see the tower, other things like that where people recreate and congregate, that's really what you're looking at for SECR. And regarding what happened with the solar and where they're reviewing from alternative properties, there's a specific language in the solar law that talks about maximizing screening from contiguous properties. That's why the solar company had to do that. So again, regarding the comment that, driving along with coverage creates an issue, a safety issue, there's hands-free devices. People can make phone calls in safe manners that are code compliant and law compliant, that don't necessarily create a danger and safety issue. In fact, making those phone calls while you're in those areas, that is a safety issue, because if you lost a coverage and you have any period of time where you do not have the ability to make a phone call, there could be important information that needs to be shared, not just a 911 phone call. Sometimes you need to make other emergency phone calls. And then again, regarding the gravel mine parking lot, if I could get more information on where that exactly is, I could try to get more information on that. Although I do believe there was a gravel area shown in the most recent supplemental maps. But if I could just get more information on what that area is, I'd be happy.
It's
to
a
provide it.
scenic overlook. I think it's
Okay.
north of White House.
Sure. And then the only other thing was this, we're looking at alternative properties, just again, we did review alternative properties. We asked, the current town supervisor had brought up the Over Mountain Conservation Area. We submitted a response on that we couldn't actually provide the coverage to Route 22 from the Over Mountain Conservation Area. And again, we keep stating this, the goal and target area is Route 22, but that's not where all the coverage is going. We've stated, again, it is Route 22 and the surrounding areas. The reason why we focused more on discussing Route 22 was in context of a discussion about Boston Corners. We're not saying that the coverage is limited to the strip along Route 22. It is the surrounding areas. And you did have members of the public come up and say that, they do work logging in the surrounding areas, and they came make phone calls. Some people said that they actually had to drag people down the mountain to make phone calls. So those are our quick responses to these, and we could try to provide more responses at the next meeting.
Did it respond to the lower heights and the same coverage on the maps?
So that again included in the August 27th, cityscape report. In the August 27th cityscape report, they specifically say that the 95-foot height is required. We've also included
For the same coverage.
no, so they're saying the 95 foot center line height is required for Verizon to fill in their coverage objectives. So, and again, we supplied a height justification maps that went with the October 30th submission, which did go through and showed at lowering heights that there are areas that start to degrade coverage. You get from a stronger signal strength to a weaker signal strength, and then from a weaker signal strength to no signal strength. So we did provide a justification showing differing height maps at different frequencies that did show there's a degradation of service as you go down. And again, the cityscape consultant has already confirmed that 95 is the minimum centerline height for Verizon.
Have a look at the maps and look at Route 22. Use that as a baseline, right? Just to use that as a starting point. Say, where is the sign for Angram to begin, and where does the cover? Just have a look at them.
To compare, you mean?
Just compare. Have a look at the maps and compare 100 to 80 to 60, and have a look at how the coverage, as shown by the maps, changes on Route 22. I think it helps demonstrate, because ultimately it's not about is it 100% perfect coverage? No. When they changed the antennas and went down to 100 feet, was it the exact same coverage? No. They said it was negligible. It wasn't the same coverage. We're not talking about the exact same coverage. Is it exactly the same? It'll never be exactly the same. You could have a bird fly into an antenna and it will be the same, right? What we're talking about is the trade-off. What does 80 feet look like for 97% of the same impact that you would never feel because you're driving 55 miles an hour on Route 22? If you could go down to 60 feet and the impact is a 30-second, 20-second, 10-second additional gap along Route 22, isn't that worth it for the impact that you would have visually in our spots? That's what I was trying to articulate. I did it well. Thank you.
So again, she's
not.
you have an expert.
This is it.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah.
But you have an expert who reviews this, and again, there's a reason you hired an expert. This is technical information. Just taking a layman's view of something and saying, "Hey, this looks the same as this, or this looks similar enough," or to equate it into things like a 10-second gap along the highway. There's no evidence on that. Again, you have a consultant that's shown that they have an expertise. You've retained them. They have also stated that 95 center line is the minimum height. That's the fact in the record. The board's consultant has said that the 95 height is the minimum height. You also have a zoning code that says it anticipates a 100-foot tower here.
Okay, the end.
Can we do a motion to adjourn this public hearing till the special meeting,
Till the March meeting.
the March meeting?
That's why we did the.
We're not doing
we did
public.
The comment. Earl,
Are we
I
done
also
with public
need to-
hearings?
We done that.
Well, let's talk
until the
about
next
that.
meeting.
Can we
Yeah.
just do that?
My understanding is that you heard the comments tonight so that you can close. the public
Okay,
hearing.
okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I just wanted, all right, so I just wanted to get a motion.
Yes, you can do,
Let's-
yes, you can do it and you should do it. So that you're just focusing on
Okay,
that.
so there's no
okay?
public participation. They can come.
At the special meeting,
At
that's
the
correct.
special meeting, okay.
We're
Not
gonna
a
close
public
the public hearing.
So the public hearing should be carried over to the next regular meeting.
Okay, so I make a motion to adjourn the public hearing to March,
Keep it open.
fifth. I just want, if we're done, I just want, if we're done with it, we're done with it. So
March fifth,
regular
it's the
meeting.
same day,
the regular March meeting,
Yes.
March fifth.
March fifth, okay.
I second.
Second?
No, I'm gonna say one more thing.
All those.
Just that.
Second.
I just want
Second.
to, I'm sorry.
Second. It's all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Oh,
So-
anyway, my one thing was, every time I'm traveling, cell towers tend to be on mountaintops. What I read was, when they're on mountaintops, you get the best, what do you call it? Generating signal that's gonna get more people than where it's gonna be here in this valley. And we're in the scenic valley, and it's unfortunate that it has to be there.
Well, it
I'm
has
not
to
against
connect
cell
to another
service.
tower. That's the problem. It has to connect. You can't just go put it on a mountain.
We need to make a motion to
Well, I was
adjourn.
gonna say next to the gravel mine.
All right, we need a motion to close the meeting.
Oh, yes, Scott, please.
So before we adjourn, there's just one more question. With the shot clock is expiring tomorrow, can we have an extension until the March meeting?
No, just until the special, we'll talk about.
Well, we just extended the public hearing in March.
Well, I don't know why we're taking more public comment, but that's why we're taking it to.
Well, I thought that you had mentioned that if there has there.
I mean, no matter what happens with seeker at the special meeting, the board's not gonna issue a determination of significance at that meeting.
So we extend to March sixth, and I'll send an email.
All right, make a motion to,
It's 2 months, trees.
We're gonna have the secret, and everything, and then we just continue the public hearing, oh, you didn't even go to the public hearing. So we're not making any progress.
But also, we have continuously.
Made a lot of progress, trust me.
Yeah. To make a motion to close the hearing?
We did, didn't we?
No,
that was the-
No, to close the meeting.
Yeah, no, we haven't made that motion.
Okay.
You're making-
Motion to adjourn the meeting?
Okay.
Motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yes. I made motion to adjourn second, all in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Sure.
Yeah.